Chapter 2081. Hearing this, the two followers ran to Qin Feiyang's group of 3 and Jin Zhou's group of 6 and gave each of them 5 divine crystals. Jin Zhou's group of 6 held the 5 divine crystals without any doubt or surprise. But Qin Feiyang's group of 3 was a little puzzled. Why did they have to be given 5 divine crystals? As a member of the Resource Palace, you must know how to make money. As for the second stage, it is to use the 5 divine crystals in your hands to earn even more wealth before daybreak. Jin Fatso said. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang's group of 3 suddenly understood. Of course. A gentleman loves money and obtains it through the Tao. No one is allowed to rob, or steal. You are also not allowed to use your own wealth to make up the numbers. And you are also not allowed to use your connections to take shortcuts. In short, your capital is only 5 divine crystals. As for how to earn more, you can only rely on your own brains and abilities. Understand? Jin Fatso shouted. Understood. Jin Zhou's group of 6 nodded. Qin Feiyang's group of 3 looked at each other and nodded. In addition, this time, the Resource Palace only has a total of 6 spots. In other words, 3 of you will be eliminated. As for the criteria for elimination, whoever earns less wealth will be eliminated. Jin Fatso finished and said, "What else do you not understand? Hurry up and ask." Hua Yi said, "Senior brother Jin, is this test limited to the 9 Heavens Palace or outside the 9 Heavens Palace?" Jin Fatso said, "There are no restrictions. You can go wherever you want." So it's like that. There is one more question. Will the 9 of us form a team or go our own way? Hua Yi asked again. It's fine to form a team or go our own way. Jin Fatso said. Hua Yi frowned. If we go our own way, then even if someone cheats, no one will know, right? Regarding this point, of course, I have also considered it. I will have people follow you all the way and supervise you. Jin Fatso said. Hua Yi nodded and said with a smile, "Senior brother Jin, there's no problem." Jin Fatso looked at Jin Zhou's group and asked, "What about you guys?" The 6 shook their heads. All right then. Jin Fatso nodded his head and glanced at the 9 people. Then, he said to the 2 lackeys. You 2 follow Jin Zhou and the others. You must watch them carefully. Don't let anyone cheat. Yes. The 2 nodded. As for junior brother Jiang and the other 2, Jin Fatso pondered for a while, looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 2, and said with a smile, "I'll supervise it personally." Do you have any objections? Of course not. It's our honor to have senior brother Jin personally supervise us. How could we have any objections? Qin Feiyang and the other 2 laughed. Jin Fatso chuckled and said, "Then let's begin. Before dawn tomorrow, we'll gather at the resource hall." Jin Zhou's group stood in place without moving. They all looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 2 with playful eyes. Hua Yi glanced at the 6 people and looked down at the 5 divine crystals in his hand. He said, "Brother Jiang, Brother Mu, I don't know anything about making money. I'll have to rely on you guys. If the capital was a little more, and the time limit was a little longer, there would be no way. But now, there are only 5 divine crystals. Even if we add them together, we only have 15. What's the use of that? The worst thing is that the time limit is so short." Mu Tianyang said secretly. He also had a headache. Hua Yi said, "Then why don't we follow Jin Zhou and the others and see how they do it? It's useless. They clearly don't want to team up with us. If we shamelessly follow them, they will still find a way to get rid of us." Mu Tianyang said secretly. Qin Feiyang glanced at Jin Fatso and said, "I think, no matter how hard we work, we can't win this round." "What do you mean?" Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi were surprised. With Fatso Jin here, even if we want to cheat, we won't have a chance. But Jin Zhou's group is different. They are in cahoots with Fatso Jin, so even if they cheat, Jin Fatso won't care. It's even possible that he won't care and will cover for them. Qin Feiyang said. Mu Tianyang said secretly, then won't we only be eliminated? Yes. Even if we can earn 100 million divine crystals, we will inevitably be eliminated. Qin Feiyang said. Then what should we do? We can't just be eaten by Fatso Jin like this, right? Hua Yi frowned. Qin Feiyang lowered his head, his eyes flickering. Jin Fatso asked suspiciously, Junior brother Jiang, are you going to stand here forever? Mu Tianyang laughed, aren't we just thinking about how to make money? So it's like that. Jin Fatso suddenly smiled, and said, then you guys take your time to think, I'm not in a hurry. But in his heart, he was sneering. It was better to give up early, because no matter what he did, he would be eliminated in the end. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a bright light, and said, Yu Huang, don't cultivate yet. What is it? Yu Huang's voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. Immediately turn the color of your skin transparent, and then take the image crystal and follow Jin Zhou and the others. I'm sure that they will definitely cheat. When the time comes, record the process of them cheating for me. Qin Feiyang thought. Understood. Yu Huang replied. After he was ready, Qin Feiyang pulled Yu Huang out without anyone noticing. Not only could Yu Huang change the color of his skin, he also didn't have the slightest aura. As long as you don't use your divine sense to search, even if it was standing in front of you, you wouldn't be able to find it. But now, even if you used your divine sense, you wouldn't be able to find it. Because there was a hidden soul stone in its mouth. Qin Feiyang wasn't lacking in hidden soul stone right now. During this period of time in the ancient realm, he had also obtained a lot of universe rings. For example, Nia Yun and Feng Zijuan's universe ring had hidden soul stone in it. In other words, with the concealment soul stone, Yu Huang would be invulnerable. No one would be able to discover it. Qin Feiyang secretly warned Yu Huang a few more times, then looked at Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi, and laughed, let's go. Where to? Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi were suspicious. To Sky Dragon City. Qin Feiyang smiled and soared into the sky, flying towards the heaven stairway. Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi looked at each other, with a trace of suspicion, they quickly chased after him. Jin Fatso glanced at Qin Feiyang and the other two, and said to Jin Zhou and the other 5, you guys be careful, don't let anyone catch you. Don't worry. Jin Zhou secretly smiled. Jin Fatso looked at the backs of Qin Feiyang and the other two, the corner of his mouth hooked up into a sneer, and then chased after Qin Feiyang and the other two. Big brother Jin Zhou, what should we do? After Qin Feiyang and the others left, the 5 looked at Jin Zhou and asked. What should we do? Of course, we'll find a place where there's no one, drink, chat, and enjoy the moonlight. Jin Zhou laughed. Drink and chat. Enjoy the moonlight? The 5 looked at each other, and quickly asked, what about the test? With my brother taking care of us, do we still need to take the test? Jin Zhou disdainfully smiled, and then soared into the sky, disappearing into the night like lightning. The 5 looked at each other, and couldn't help but laugh. The 2 little followers also laughed especially brightly. But they didn't realize that there was a little tail hiding in the dark, following them and watching them. Back to Qin Feiyang and the others. They had already left 9th Heaven Palace, and were standing on the mountain peak. Qin Feiyang looked at the direction of Sky Dragon City, and asked, Senior brother Jin, can we open the altar? Of course. Jin Fatso nodded. Are you sure? Don't say we cheated. Qin Feiyang said. Junior brother Jiang, from what you're saying, it's as if I'm targeting you. This altar is just a transportation tool, it has nothing to do with the test. Even if I say you guys cheated, no one will agree. Jean Fatso said helplessly. That's good. Qin Feiyang nodded with a smile, opened an altar, and walked up. Mu Tianyang, Hua Yi, and Jean Fatso followed closely behind. The next moment, the four of them arrived at the west gate. Evening was the most lively time in Sky Dragon City. In front of the city gate, pedestrians came and went. When passing through the city gate, Qin Feiyang and the other three didn't go through any checks, and directly entered the city. So lively. Qin Feiyang leisurely walked on the street as he looked at the endless stream of people and said with a smile. After all, it's Sky Dragon City. The biggest city in the northern region, how can it not be lively? Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi laughed. What's the situation? Sightseeing? Looking at Qin Feiyang and the other two, Fatty Jean, who was at the back, frowned. He caught up with them in a few steps and asked calmly, Junior Marshal Brother Jiang, where are we going? You'll know later. Qin Feiyang smiled mysteriously. In fact, Hua Yi and Mu Tianyang also had some doubts. However, looking at Qin Feiyang's expression, they knew that he must have thought of a way, so they were too lazy to ask and just followed him. About half an hour passed. Finally, Qin Feiyang leisurely walked to the front of a restaurant. Jean Fatso was taken aback, he raised his head to look at the restaurant, and three big words came into view. Yulan Restaurant. Why are we still here? Jean Fatso was stunned. Didn't they say they were going to make money? Why did they come here? Young Master Jiang. Standing at the entrance of the restaurant was a red-clothed woman. When she saw Qin Feiyang, she was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly greeted him with a smile. I was wondering why I was a little uneasy today. It turns out that there are distinguished guests. Young Master Jiang, please come in. You really know how to talk. Qin Feiyang smiled at the woman and strode into the restaurant. Jiang Haotian, Hua Yi, and Mu Tianyang. Wait, isn't that Feng Yuan's grandson, Jean Fatso? Why would they come to Yulan Tower together? As soon as they entered the Yulan restaurant, the people in the restaurant's hall were in an uproar. They all looked at Qin Feiyang and the other three in surprise. Qin Feiyang glanced at the audience and smiled at the woman. Miss, please arrange a private room for me, I want to entertain distinguished guests. Distinguished guests? The red-clothed woman was stunned. Qin Feiyang put his arm around Jean Fatso's shoulder and laughed. This senior brother Jean is the distinguished guest I want to entertain today. Calm. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 2082. Entertain me? Jean Fatso was stunned. Instead of earning money, she came to entertain him? What the hell was going on? Wait a minute. Was she trying to bribe him? The people in the restaurant hall all looked strange when they heard Qin Feiyang's words. Entertain Jean Fatso? Didn't the Feng family have a grudge against Jiang Haotian? As Feng Yuan's grandson, Jean Fatso should have a common enemy. Why was he so friendly with Jiang Haotian? Wasn't he afraid that Feng Yuan would be angry? I see. The woman in red glanced at Jean Fatso and smiled. Then please go to the top floor. The top floor? The people in the hall were stunned again. Wasn't the top floor a private place for Shengguan Qiu to entertain distinguished guests? And now, Shengguan Qiu wasn't in Yulan Tower. Why did she ask them to go to the top floor? Wait a minute. Was the relationship between Jiang Haotian and Shengguan Qiu so good that there was no distinction between them? Not to mention the outsiders, even Qin Feiyang himself was a little surprised. He looked at the woman in red and said, "Isn't this a little inappropriate?" "It's okay. Because this is the order of the Tower Master. The Tower Master has already said that if young Master Jiang comes, please go to the top floor with the best treatment. The woman in red smiled. The best treatment? Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but feel a storm in their hearts. One had to know. Sheng Wanxiu was not only the Tower Master of Yulan Tower, but also the steward of the treasure school. She also had a terrifying master and a powerful sister. Furthermore, her innate talent was not bad. It could be said that this woman was the standard god's favored daughter. Who knew how many men in the northern region regarded her as a goddess? But usually, except at the auction house, there was no chance to see her, let alone get close to her. But now, she actually regarded Jiang Haotian as such an important distinguished guest. Just what did this Jiang Haotian do to be able to gain the favor of this goddess? Jean Fatso was also extremely shocked. What was the relationship between Jiang Haotian and Sheng Wanxiu to deserve such treatment? However, Qin Feiyang did not feel happy about this. On the contrary, he was secretly complaining in his heart. Although it seemed like something that was worth showing off, it actually made him a public enemy. Of course, he knew that he could not blame Sheng Wanxiu. Sheng Wanxiu had good intentions. It could only be said that some people were too jealous and couldn't bear to see others doing better than them. Especially in front of women like Sheng Wanxiu. The lady in red smiled and said, "Young Master Jiang, please." Qin Feiyang looked around. Most of the people had a trace of indignation in their eyes. Obviously, they were jealous. He took a deep breath, cupped his hands, and said with a smile, "Then I shall accept your offer." Then, he dragged Jean Fatso up to the top floor. Jean Fatso felt a little uncomfortable. After all, this was the Yulan Pavilion, not the Jade Zither Pavilion. If it was at the Jade Zither house, with his relationship with Feng Zihan, he could totally treat himself as the owner of the Jade Zither house. After all, they were cousins. But in the Yulan Pavilion, he was just an ordinary guest. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Senior brother Jean, you are a man who has seen the world. Why are you still so shy?" Jean Fatso enjoyed this round of flattery. He straightened his back a little. With a big belly, he was very proud. After entering the private room on the top floor, Qin Feiyang invited Jean Fatso to sit down. He looked at the lady in red and said with a smile, "Miss, I want the best wine and the best dishes." "Understood." The lady in red nodded and said, "Have a seat. I'll arrange it now." Then, the lady in red turned and walked out quickly, closing the door. "Junior brother Jiang, what on earth are you doing?" How could Jean Fatso sit still? As soon as the door was closed, he immediately got up and asked. "Sit, sit, sit." Qin Feiyang got up and pushed Jean Fatso back to his seat. Then, he returned to his seat inside. "To tell you the truth, senior brother Feng Zijuan's death has become my regret. I wanted to reconcile with him, but now, I don't even have the chance to say sorry." Jean Fatso was stunned and smiled. "I didn't expect junior brother Jiang to be such a sentimental person. No, no, no. I just hate him. Feng Zijuan was such a good person. How could he die so young? Don't let me know who it is. Otherwise, I won't let him go." Qin Feiyang said angrily. "Junior brother Jiang, I believe Zijuan will be very happy if he knows about this in the underworld." Jean Fatso smiled and asked suspiciously, "But what does this have to do with today's test?" "The test is only secondary. This is a rare opportunity. Today, I must treat senior brother Jean to a feast. In the future, I will have to thank senior brother Jean for taking care of me in the 9th Heaven Palace." Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled. "What do you mean? Junior brother Jiang, are you really trying to bribe me? Let me tell you, this is against the rules. You can't do it. Jean Fatso said righteously. Bribe? Qin Feiyang was stunned and shook his head. Senior brother Jean, look at what you're saying. How can this be called a bribe? We got together because we hit it off. It has nothing to do with anything else. That's good. I'm afraid that if you want to take a shortcut, not only will you hurt yourself, but also me. Jean Fatso smiled. Why would I? Let's not talk about the test. Today, we'll just drink and chat. We won't go home until we're drunk. Qin Feiyang said. Okay. We won't go home until we're drunk. Jean Fatso nodded. Anyway, he wasn't going to take the test. What was there to be afraid of? Let's drink then. Dong. A moment later. The woman in red brought a few waiters and brought a large table of delicious food and 4 jars of wine. Mu Tianyang anxiously held a jar of wine and opened the lid. A strong smell of wine immediately rushed out. Mu Tianyang's eyes suddenly lit up and smiled. This is the wine that Shengguan Qiu invited us to drink last time. It's absolutely divine. Fatso Jean said, I've also heard of this wine. It's really good. It seems that senior brother Jean is a kindred spirit. Come, I'll pour it for senior brother Jean. Mu Tianyang held the jar of wine and ran to Fatso Jean and poured a full cup. Then he filled the cups in front of Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi, then returned to his seat and smiled. Come, let's toast. Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi raised their cups. Senior brother Jean, let's toast to you. I hope that in the future, we can be good friends, brothers. Mu Tianyang smiled. Hua Yi laughed and said, I'll add one more thing, we'll share blessings and misfortunes. Good. Jean Fatso nodded and laughed. Come, let's toast. The 4 of them clinked their cups and drank it all in one gulp. Come, let's eat. Mu Tianyang was very enthusiastic. Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi did not hesitate and the private room was filled with laughter. The woman in red also left sensibly. But soon, a woman appeared in the private room. What's the occasion today? Why are you drinking so happily? It was Shengguan Qiu. Shengguan Qiu asked in surprise as he looked at the 4 of them who were drinking and chatting happily. Why are you here? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He put down his cup and asked suspiciously. You're all distinguished guests of Yulan restaurant. As the owner, how can I not come to accompany you personally? Shengguan Qiu smiled. Distinguished guests. Jean Fatso smiled wryly. What kind of distinguished guest was he? Until now, he still had not figured out what Jiang Haotian and the other 2 wanted to do. Shengguan Qiu walked to Qin Feiyang's side. Wisps of pleasant body fragrance went into Qin Feiyang's nostrils. If it were anyone else, they would definitely be tempted. However, Qin Feiyang's expression remained calm. There were no improper thoughts in his mind. But Hua Yi was a little dissatisfied. He looked at Shengguan Qiu and said, Sister-in-law, there are so many seats. Why are you sitting next to him? Sister-in-law. Qin Feiyang, Mu Tianyang, and Jean Fatso looked at each other. Shengguan Qiu was also caught off guard by this sudden address. She looked at Hua Yi for a moment and frowned. You're not the man my sister was talking about, are you? Yes. Hua Yi nodded repeatedly and asked, what did she say about me in front of you? Shengguan Qiu rolled her eyes and said, she said you're shameless and a scoundrel. Absolutely impossible. I'm indeed a little shameless. But the word scoundrel has nothing to do with me. You must have heard it wrong. Hua Yi waved his hand in disbelief. Believe it or not, it's up to you. But there's one thing you must remember. Don't call me that in the future. Who's your sister-in-law? Shengguan Qiu snorted and looked up at Fatso Jean. She smiled and said, Fatso, you've never been to my Yulon restaurant. Well, Jean Fatso looked a little embarrassed. In fact, Yulon restaurant and Yuqin restaurant were competitors. As Feng Zihan's cousin, he naturally could not spend money in Yulon restaurant. I'm very happy that you can come today. Come, let me toast you. Sheng Guanxiu held a wine glass and smiled. I wouldn't dare. Junior brother Jiang, junior brother Mu, junior brother Hua, let's drink together. Jean Fatso quickly waved his hand and looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two for help. Although he had Feng Yuan as his backer, Sheng Guanxiu's backer was even more terrifying. Not only did he have Shengguan Fenglan, but he also had the entire treasure haul. Therefore, he did not dare to be presumptuous in front of Sheng Guanxiu. Qin Feiyang glanced at Fatso Jean and nodded with a smile. Okay. We'll keep you company. Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi looked at each other and smiled. They also picked up their wine glasses. Sheng Guanxiu was also quite forthright. He downed his wine in one gulp. Then, he glanced at Qin Feiyang and transmitted his voice to him, You're definitely up to no good. Me? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He thought to himself, What do you mean? Last time when my sister was here, you didn't drink. But this time, you're drinking so happily with Fatso Jean. It's very unusual. Sheng Guanxiu transmitted his voice meaningfully. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. He smiled secretly and said, It's nothing. I'm just in a good mood today. You can continue to pretend. Sheng Guanxiu rolled his eyes and transmitted his voice again. By the way, I'm here today because I have something to ask you. P.S. On the 17th, which is the day after tomorrow, my grandfather's funeral will be held. I'll be busy for a few days. Please forgive me. Calm. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 2083. What's the matter? Qin Feiyang asked secretly while drinking with Fatso Jean. Sheng Guanxiu frowned. Isn't the failure rate of the elixirs too high? Qin Feiyang's face froze, but he soon calmed down. He smiled and said, Refining elixirs is not a game. It's normal to fail a little. It's inevitable that they will fail. But you've wasted 15 out of 100 sets of elixirs? Do you know how hard it is to find these elixirs? Can't you be more careful? Sheng Guanxiu said angrily. What? 15 sets of elixirs? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. Mu Tianyang gave me exactly 85 4 elephants infinite divine elixirs. Doesn't that mean 15 sets of elixirs are wasted? Sheng Guanxiu said. What's going on? Qin Feiyang frowned. He had given Mu Tianyang 90 pills. How did it become 85 pills in Sheng Guanxiu's hands? Wait. Qin Feiyang glanced at Mu Tianyang and said secretly, You swallowed 5 4 elephants infinite divine elixirs? Mu Tianyang was stunned, but he did not deny it. He said secretly, You swallowed 10 pills, and I only swallowed 5. It's not too much. Qin Feiyang was speechless for a moment. Mu Tianyang smiled and said, Let's not talk about this. Come on, let's drink. Qin Feiyang stared at him and raised his glass. He said to Sheng Guanxiu, I'm sorry. I'll be more careful next time. I'll try to reduce the failure rate. I'm not blaming you. I just feel sorry for you. After all, it was not easy to gather 100 sets of elixirs. Sheng Guanxiu said secretly. Yes. Qin Feiyang agreed inwardly. Soon after, he rolled his eyes and laughed inwardly, however, you definitely won't lose out. I won't lose anything. Sheng Guanxiu said with a smile. His tone was full of confidence. Qin Feiyang asked, When are you going to start the auction? Let's build momentum first, then auction. The plan is in 3 days. Furthermore, I plan to auction it off using soul stones. Shengguan Qiu said. You do have some tricks up your sleeve. Qin Feiyang secretly gave him a thumbs up. On the other side. On a mountain peak near the 9 Heavens Palaces intersect, Jin Zhou's group of 6 and the 2 lackeys were also gathered together, drinking and chatting happily. In the blink of an eye. It was almost dawn. In the private room, the faces of the 5 people all showed signs of drunkenness. But their hearts were bright. Jin Fatso looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 2, feeling more and more puzzled. For the entire night, the 3 of them did not mention anything about the test. Had he already given up? He turned his head and looked out the window. The sky was already turning bright. If he didn't move now, he would run out of time. Qin Feiyang glanced at Fatso Jin, then looked at Shengguan Qiu and said with a smile, Miss Shengguan, there's something I want to ask you. What is it? Shengguan Qiu was suspicious. Qin Feiyang asked, what can I buy with 15 divine gems in your treasure pavilion? Jin Fatso immediately pricked up his ears. Had it finally begun? 15 divine gems? Shengguan Qiu was stunned. After thinking carefully for a while, she said, 15 sets of medicinal herbs for healing elixirs. That's good. Qin Feiyang smiled, took out 5 divine gems from his arms, and put them on the table. Then he looked at Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi. The 2 understood and took out 5 divine gems respectively. Qin Feiyang looked at Shengguan Qiu and said with a smile, I'll buy 15 sets of medicinal herbs for healing elixirs from you now. What's going on? Shengguan Qiu was stunned. Don't ask. Qin Feiyang said. Shengguan Qiu looked at them suspiciously. She counted 15 sets of medicinal herbs from her interspatial ring and handed them to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Tianyang and said with a smile, Brother Mu, you do it. Me? Mu Tianyang pointed at his nose and said with a frown, you should do better. Qin Feiyang said, it's all the same. It doesn't matter. Okay then. Mu Tianyang nodded. He stood up and waved his hand, taking out an alchemy furnace and alchemy fire. The alchemy furnace and alchemy fire were both 9th grade. Although they could not refine elixirs like the 4 symbols infinite divine elixir, they were more than enough to refine healing elixirs. Mu Tianyang's alchemy technique was also very skillful. Compared to Qin Feiyang, he wasn't much worse. Soon, 15 healing elixirs were produced. There were 7 veins on each elixir. Amazing! Qin Feiyang said to himself in surprise. Although he had known Mu Tianyang for many years, this was the first time he had seen Mu Tianyang refine elixirs with his own eyes. He could actually refine elixirs with 7 veins? It seemed that his mind power was not low either. Compared to you, it's still not good enough. Mu Tianyang sighed to himself, but there was still a hint of pride in his tone. Refining elixirs with 7 veins, even if he was not a genius, he could be regarded as one of the best alchemists. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, Miss Shengguan, how many divine gems are these 15 healing elixirs worth? This, to me, it's not worth a single penny. After all, healing elixirs are too common, and those who have a little bit of strength basically use life elixirs. According to the market price, this healing elixir is worth 2 divine gems at most. Shengguan Qiu said after thinking for a while. So little? It's at least 5 veins. Mu Tianyang was displeased. If it's a life elixir, 5 veins will definitely be worth several times more. But I'm really sorry about the healing elixir. Unless it's a divine level healing elixir, no one will care about it. Shengguan Qiu said. It's okay. 2 divine gems it is. You can buy it and give me 30 divine gems. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Sheng Wanqiu looked at the three of them suspiciously. What are you doing? To be honest, we want to enter the resource hall, and the content of this assessment is to use the 5 divine gems in our hands to earn more divine gems. Qin Feiyang said. I see. Sheng Wanqiu suddenly understood and said with a smile, then I'll give you a higher price. How about 10 million divine gems each? I believe that these divine gems will definitely help you pass the assessment. Jin Fatso narrowed his eyes and glanced at Qin Feiyang and the other two. As long as Qin Feiyang and the other two nodded, it would be tantamount to violating the rules. At that time, he would naturally have a reason to eliminate the three of them directly. Qin Feiyang glanced at Fatso Jin, then looked at Sheng Wanqiu and said with a smile, that won't do. The rules say that we can't use our connections. Just do as you like. Jin Fatso couldn't help but feel disappointed when he heard that. But soon, he sneered in his heart. It didn't matter. After all, they had only earned a dozen divine gems. They had only earned a dozen divine gems after an entire night. If this news spread, they would become a joke. Sheng Wanqiu took a deep look at Qin Feiyang and nodded with a smile. Okay, then we'll follow the rules. As she spoke, she took out 15 divine gems. In addition to the 15 divine gems that Qin Feiyang and the other two had given her, there were exactly 30 divine gems. Hua Yi glanced at the 30 divine gems and said with a frown, Brother Jiang, I'm afraid that's not enough. Before Qin Feiyang could speak, Fatso Jin spoke first, even if it's not enough, there's no other way. Because time's up. Look out the window. Qin Feiyang and the other two looked out the window. The sky was already bright. Hua Yi and Mu Tianyang immediately frowned. They had only earned 15 divine gems. Brother Jiang, you don't think that we can win with just these 15 divine gems, do you? What kind of medicine are you selling in your gourd? Can you tell us? Hua Yi asked through telepathy. Mu Tianyang also had a suspicious look on his face. Qin Feiyang smiled secretly and said, Don't worry, I promise you that you will win. Really? The two of them were still skeptical. Really? Qin Feiyang said secretly. Hearing this, Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Qin Feiyang looked at Fatso Jin and said with a smile, Senior Brother Jin, did you have fun drinking tonight? Yes, yes. I've never been as happy as today. Jin Fatso said. As long as you're happy. Qin Feiyang laughed and put away the 30 divine gems. He stood up and said, Since it's morning, let's go back. Okay. Jin Fatso nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at Sheng Wanqiu again and said, I still have things to do. I'll write down today's bill and pay you another day. Sheng Wanqiu waved his hand and said, It's okay. It's my treat today. Thank you very much. Qin Feiyang did not stand on ceremony. He cupped his hands and smiled, then opened a transmission altar. Resource Hall. Jin Zhou's group of 6 and the 2 followers had returned to the square. Everyone had a bright smile on their faces. Whoosh! When Qin Feiyang and the others rushed back to Ninth Heaven Palace and landed on the square, the 6 people immediately cast provocative looks at Qin Feiyang and the other two. Qin Feiyang turned a blind eye. Because the moment he landed on the square, he felt something small get into his trousers and then climb into his arms. Clearly, this little thing was none other than Yu Huang. How was it? Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice to him. Yu Huang said to himself, they were drinking and chatting all night and did nothing. The 2 followers were also in cahoots with them. Just as I expected. Qin Feiyang muttered and asked, Did you record it? Of course. Yu Huang said. Well done. Go to the castle and send me the video you recorded. Qin Feiyang said. With a thought, Yu Huang, who was hiding in his arms, suddenly disappeared. Fatso looked at Jin Zhou's group and took a few steps forward. Facing Qin Feiyang and the others, he said with a smile, "A night has passed. Take out your results." Qin Feiyang directly took out the 30 divine arts. That's all you have? Jin Zhou's group of 6 looked at Qin Feiyang in astonishment. Quite a lot. Qin Feiyang smiled. This is a lot. Let me count. 1, 2, 3. A total of 30 divine crystals. If you divide it equally, each of you will have earned 5 divine crystals. Are you sure you're not here to be funny? The 6 people laughed unscrupulously. What about you? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Us? The 6 people looked at each other and laughed even more happily. Then Jin Zhou took out a Qianquan bag from his arms and shook it in front of Qin Feiyang's group, saying, "There are more than 700,000 divine crystals inside. Even if we divide it equally, each of us will have more than 100,000. It's enough to crush you." Calm. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 2084. So much? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Of course. Jin Zhou smiled proudly and handed the Qianquan bag to Fatso. Jin Fatso counted carefully and nodded. There are indeed 700,000 divine gems. Amazing. You earned 700,000 divine gems with your capital of 5 divine gems in one night. I'm afraid that even the people of the treasure school can't compare with you. Qin Feiyang laughed. Don't be so sarcastic. We didn't steal or rob. We earned it with our own ability. Jin Zhou snorted. Who knows? Qin Feiyang laughed. Jin Fatso raised his eyebrows, looked at the 2 followers, and asked, did they cheat? We didn't leave a single step during the whole process. We definitely didn't cheat. The 2 lackeys said. Very good. Jin Fatso nodded with a smile. But Qin Feiyang suddenly looked at the 2 followers and said, can you guarantee with your life that they didn't cheat? What do you mean? The 2 followers immediately glared at Qin Feiyang. Nothing. I just can't believe it. After all, the capital was only 5 divine gems. They added up to only 30 divine gems. 30 versus 700,000, how many times is that? Qin Feiyang laughed. Jin Fatso was extremely dissatisfied, and said, Junior brother Jiang, you can't, but it doesn't mean that others can't. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded repeatedly. Jin Fatso glanced at them and said, now the result is obvious. The one who will be eliminated is, wait. Qin Feiyang suddenly spoke again. Jin Fatso was slightly stunned and frowned. Junior brother Jiang, what do you want to do? Isn't it obvious? He's not convinced. Jin Zhou and the other 5 people sneered. Jin Fatso said, Junior brother Jiang, is it true? Yes, I'm not convinced. Qin Feiyang nodded. Jin Fatso was infuriated and sighed, Junior brother Jiang, to be honest, I used to admire you, but I didn't expect you to be a sore loser. Qin Feiyang smiled and said indifferently, if they had defeated me with their true abilities, I wouldn't have anything to say. However, they had resorted to trickery, and there were even people shielding them. Hearing this, the 6 people from Jin Zhou suddenly panicked. A wisp of surprise and bewilderment flashed through Jin Fatso's eyes, and he said in a low voice, Junior brother Jiang, what do you mean by that? I'm the chief examiner of this assessment. Aren't you talking about me when you say that someone is shielding them? Everyone knows who I'm talking about. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. He turned to look at Hua Yi and said, Brother Hua, I'll have to trouble you to make a trip and invite the law enforcement hall master here. No need. I'll send her a message. Hua-yi waved his hand and took out an image crystal. What? You even invited the hall master of the law enforcement hall? The 6 people on the golden boat were shocked. Could it be that this person had something on them? Jin Fatso transmitted his voice. Jin Zhou, where were you this night? Jin Zhou secretly said, we hid on a mountain peak with no one around, drinking and chatting. Are you sure there's no one around? Jin Fatso secretly asked. I'm sure. I also used my divine sense to search. Jin Zhou replied. That's good. Jin Fatso breathed a sigh of relief and secretly sneered, if there's no evidence, then I'd like to see what kind of tricks this person can play. Buzz. Soon after, a shadow appeared. It was Shengguan Fenglan. What's the matter? Shengguan Fenglan looked at Qin Feiyang and the other 2 and asked faintly. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled. This disciple would like to invite the hall master to come to the resource hall. Why do you want to go to the resource hall? Shengguan Fenglan was suspicious. There's something I have to ask the hall master to help us uphold justice. Qin Feiyang said. Uphold justice. Shengguan Fenglan's eyes flashed and said, wait for me, I'll be right there. After saying that, the shadow disappeared. She really came? Jin Fatso raised his eyebrows without a trace and looked at Qin Feiyang meaningfully. Junior brother Jiang, no matter what you do, you have to leave yourself a way out. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Did he start to threaten him? He cupped his hands and smiled. Thank you for your teaching, senior brother Jin. Jin Fatso smiled and said, I don't dare to teach, just a kind reminder. Thank you. After all, senior brother Jin is also kind to teach me how to be a person. Qin Feiyang laughed. Qin Feiyang was very modest. He shouldn't be worried, but on the contrary, Jin Fatso gradually had an ominous premonition in his heart. About a moment later, Shengguan Fenglan finally arrived. She stood in the void, her light purple dress and soft black hair fluttering in the wind. She looked like a goddess descending to the mortal world, stunning Hua-yi. Greetings, Hall Master. Not only Qin Feiyang and the other 2, Jin Fatso and the others also bowed. Shengguan Fenglan glanced at Jin Fatso and the others, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, what's the matter? Qin Feiyang said, Hall Master, please allow this disciple to ask, if the people of the resource hall made a mistake, can you do anything about it? Nonsense. This hall master is the hall master of the law enforcement hall. As long as it's someone from the 9 Heavens Palace, this hall master has the right to punish them. Shengguan Fenglan said. That's good. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, then this disciple will ask again, if the people of the resource hall abuse their power and bend the law, how should they be punished? If it's light, they will be expelled from the 9 Heavens Palace. If it's heavy, they will be executed on the spot. Shengguan Fenglan said without hesitation. Hearing this sentence, Jin Fatso's gaze suddenly trembled slightly. This was a sign of a guilty conscience. People who did something wrong were most afraid of hearing the word death. Then how is it considered light and heavy? Qin Feiyang said. Shengguan Fenglan frowned impatiently and said, if you have something to say, just say it, why ask so many questions? This hall master has his own judgment. Okay. Then, hall master, please look at a video first. Qin Feiyang took out the image crystal, and with a wave of his hand, a divine light swept out and rushed into the sky, and then a picture slowly unfolded. What is it? Everyone looked up suspiciously. Hua-yi and Mu Tianyang also didn't know what was going on. But soon, the faces of Jin Fatso and Jin Zhou changed, and their mouths kept muttering. How could it be? Mu Tianyang and Jin Zhou had a smile on their faces. It turned out that this guy had already arranged it. Looking at Shengguan Fenglan's expression again, it was extremely cold. The video that Yu Huang recorded was very long, and after a long time, the flashing picture stopped. At the same time that the picture stopped, Shengguan Fenglan's body surged with a monstrous anger, and at the same time, she lowered her head and looked at Jin Fatso and Jin Zhou, as well as the two little followers. Hall Master, we were wrong, please spare our lives. Except for Jin Fatso, all of them knelt on the ground in an instant, begging again and again. Jin Fatso didn't kneel, not because there was someone supporting him, but because he was scared silly. His whole person fell into a kind of panic that couldn't be dissolved. May I ask Hall Master, this kind of practice of favoritism and deceit is considered light or heavy? Qin Feiyang put away the image crystal and asked with a smile. Jin Fatso. Shengguan Fenglan shouted coldly. Jin Fatso quickly knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing, exclaiming, Hall Master, this disciple was confused and did such a stupid thing, please have mercy. Confused? You're really audacious. A little disciple wants to cover the sky in Jiutian Palace? Shengguan Fenglan shouted. No, 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 this disciple didn't, this disciple didn't. This disciple was wrong, this disciple won't dare to do it again, please have mercy and let this disciple go this time. Jin Fatso cried in despair. How did things turn out like this? Jiang Haotian had been drinking with him in Yulan Tower, but why was he holding this video in his hand? Have mercy? Shengguan Fenglan laughed angrily and shouted, where is Feng Yuan? Her voice was like thunder, resounding in all directions. Swish. Soon. A red-haired old man descended over the square. If it wasn't Feng Yuan, who else could it be? And it also alarmed many disciples, who came to watch the show. Feng Yuan looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two, and then at Jin Fatso and the others kneeling on the ground, and suddenly felt that something was wrong. He looked at Shengguan Fenglan suspiciously and said, what's wrong? Jiang Haotian, give that video to our hall master of the resource hall to enjoy. Shengguan Fenglan said. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and took out the video crystal. What? They were drinking and chatting the whole night? This Jin Fatso is too bold, isn't he? How dare he protect them like this? Those disciples who came to watch the show looked at the video in the void. On the one hand, they felt incredulous, and on the other hand, they were filled with righteous indignation. This was simply smearing the reputation of Jiutian Palace. Bastard! I let you invigilate because I trust you, but you did this behind my back. Who gave you the courage? After watching, Feng Yuan was also furious. He stepped in front of Jin Fatso and slapped him in the face. Jin Fatso rolled out on the spot like a rubber ball, with a black nose and swollen eyes. But he didn't care about that. He quickly got up and knelt on the ground, saying, Grandfather, I was wrong, I won't do it again. Looking at Feng Yuan's angry appearance, Qin Feiyang and the other two couldn't help but sneer. Anyone with half a brain knew that Jin Fatso was definitely wronged. Because with Jin Fatso's courage, if there was no one behind him, he wouldn't dare to make such a decision. And who else had the ability to support Jin Fatso? It was him, Feng Yuan. Shengguan Fenglan looked at Feng Yuan and asked, Feng Yuan, how do you think this matter should be handled? Feng Yuan looked at Shengguan Fenglan, then gloomily looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two, and shouted, expel him from Jiutian Palace. That's too light. He's just a disciple, and yet he dared to do such a thing. What does he think of us, the hall masters, and the great elders? Moreover, I don't think this matter is so simple. Shengguan Fenglan said. What do you mean? Feng Yuan raised his eyebrows. In the beginning, it was Feng Wenhai who framed Jiang Haotian and the others, almost killing them. Then it was Jin Yunchang who deliberately arranged for Jiang Haotian and the others to go to St. Peak, arousing the hatred of St. Peak disciples and almost killing them. And now, your grandson has also started to scheme against them. Feng Yuan, don't blame me for being suspicious, but who is behind these things? Shengguan Fenglan asked. Chapter 2085. Feng Yuan frowned. You want to say that this old man ordered it? I didn't say that. I just feel that it's a little strange. There are so many people in Ninth Heaven Palace. Why are the people who plotted against Jiang Haotian and the others from your Feng family? Shengguan Fenglan said. Isn't that what you mean? I'm telling you, Shengguan Fenglan, don't slander me. Feng Yuan said angrily. Don't misunderstand. I'm just wondering. Since you said it wasn't you, then it definitely has nothing to do with you. However, this matter must be severely punished. Otherwise, it won't have a deterrent effect. Now, this hall will publicly announce that Jin Fatso and Jin Zhou and the others have deceived their superiors and subordinates. Their crimes are intolerable. Anyone related to this matter will be executed. Shengguan Fenglan shouted. What? Executed? Jin Fatso and Jin Zhou's faces turned pale. The two little followers also collapsed on the ground on the spot, their faces ashen. This was because Shengguan Fenglan had said that anyone who was involved in this matter would be executed. Naturally, this included them. Feng Yuan was also stunned on the spot. Not to mention the others, Jin Fatso was his biological grandson. Blood was thicker than water. How could he accept the execution of Jin Fatso? Shengguan Fenglan looked at Feng Yuan and said, Feng Yuan, do you want to do it yourself, or should I do it? Feng Yuan stared at Shengguan Fenglan and said in a deep voice, they are indeed wrong, but it doesn't need to be executed. Committing such a big mistake doesn't need to be executed. Feng Yuan, how big of a heart do you have? Do you want to wait for them to ride over us, to ride over the first elder's head before they can be executed? Or do you mean that because they are related to you, they can be lenient? Shengguan Fenglan shouted. Feng Yuan's eyes trembled, and he hurriedly said, I didn't mean that. Then what do you mean? As a hall master, if you bend the law for personal gain and don't deal with it impartially, how can you convince the public? If that's the case, then I'm afraid you won't be the hall master of the resource hall for long. Shengguan Fenglan's face was full of anger. Feng Yuan's body suddenly shook, and a trace of panic appeared in his eyes. What did he mean by that? Could it be that the great elder already knew about this and was very angry? Feng Yuan, you're not an ordinary disciple. You're the leader of our Nine Heavens Palace. Sometimes, you have to know your limits. Shengguan Fenglan sighed and said in a gentler tone. Feng Yuan took a deep look at Shengguan Fenglan, then slowly closed his eyes and said weakly, You're a law enforcer. Do as you see fit. Grandpa, I don't want to die. Save me. Upon hearing this, Jin Fatso became anxious. The 6 people of Jin Zhou also panicked. If Feng Yuan helped them, they might still have a chance of survival. But now, even Feng Yuan didn't care. Who else could save them? Shengguan Fenglan glanced at Feng Yuan and waved her hand lightly. A wave of divine power appeared and transformed into strands of fine silver needles that emitted a bone-piercing sharpness. Jin Fatso and the others were in despair. Don't kill me, Lord Hall Master, I beg you, please don't kill me, this has nothing to do with me. It's all Feng Yuan and Jin Fatso's idea. They want to harm Jiang Haotian. The 2 little followers were so scared that they even peed their pants and said in panic. What? It's actually Hall Master Feng Yuan who wants to harm Jiang Haotian? The surrounding disciples who were watching the show were in an uproar in an instant. Shengguan Fenglan was also slightly stunned. Looking at the 2 little followers, she asked suspiciously, What did you say just now? It's Feng, the 2 little followers hurriedly said. But before they could finish their words, Feng Yuan suddenly opened his eyes and shouted, "Damn things, what nonsense are you talking about?" With a single step, he landed in front of the two followers and slapped them with his palm. The bodies of the two followers immediately exploded in the void, their flesh and blood splattering everywhere. They didn't even have the chance to scream and died on the spot. What a terrifying method. The pupils of Qin Feiyang and the other two shrank. When this old thing went crazy, it was really a little scary. Shangguan Fenglan's eyes flashed. Looking at Jin Fatso and the others, she said, "Do you have anything to say?" The few of them looked at Feng Yuan and swallowed their saliva. "Since the order has been given to kill, then don't waste time." Feng Yuan glanced at Shangguan Fenglan coldly. Another wave of divine power appeared and blasted toward Jin Fatso and the others. Accompanied by shrill screams, Jin Fatso and the others died on the spot. Damn, he even killed his own grandson? He's simply inhumane. Hua Yi muttered secretly. He had no choice. If Jin Fatso also said that he ordered it, then he would be able to escape responsibility. After all, the others are suspected of lying, but his own grandson would never lie. Mu Tianyang said secretly. That's right. If he didn't quickly silence them, with the courage of Jin Fatso and the others, under Shangguan Fenglan's interrogation, they would definitely tell the truth sooner or later. After all, the older the ginger, the spicier it is. In this way, he can continue to be carefree. Qin Feiyang also sighed secretly. Feng Yuan glanced at the bodies of Jin Fatso and the others, then looked up at Shangguan Fenglan and said, "Are you satisfied now?" "You can't say that. It's not about whether I'm satisfied or not, it's the rules." Shangguan Fenglan said. "Humph." Feng Yuan snorted coldly. Ignoring the bodies, he turned and prepared to enter the resource hall. "Hall Master Feng Yuan." Qin Feiyang hurriedly shouted. Feng Yuan stopped and turned to look at Qin Feiyang, his eyes extremely terrifying. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Hall Master, we can be considered to have passed the assessment. When do you think we can enter the resource hall and start working? Want to work? Okay, let's start now. Go and clean the resource hall inside and out. If there's even a speck of dust, I'll hold you responsible." Feng Yuan shouted. "Yes, Hall Master." Qin Feiyang and the other two bowed and said. A murderous intent flashed in Feng Yuan's eyes, then he entered the resource hall without looking back. Okay, you can all go now." Shangguan Fenglan waved to the surrounding disciples, then looked down at Qin Feiyang and the other two, and said, "You guys also do your work well, don't cause trouble in the resource hall." After saying that, she left. Senior Brother Jiang, Senior Brother Mu, Senior Brother Hua, congratulations. As soon as Shangguan Fenglan left, some disciples surrounded Qin Feiyang and the other two, their faces full of flattery. But before Qin Feiyang and the other two could speak, some people came forward and dragged those people back. "What are you doing? Don't you know Hall Master Feng Yuan's temper? How dare you get close to him?" This time, they killed Fatso Jin. Hall Master Feng Yuan will definitely not let them off. Be careful not to get burned. A group of people whispered. Yeah. Seems like we can't curry favor with them. Not only can we not curry favor with them, but we also have to keep a distance from them. Yes. That, Senior Brother Jiang, Senior Brother Mu, Senior Brother Hua, you guys go ahead. We'll come and see you when we're free. Go. After whispering for a while, the group of people smiled at Qin Feiyang and the other two, then turned and left quickly. All of them, do they think we're deaf? Mu Tianyang was a little angry. Although those people were deliberately lowering their voices, with their current cultivations, it was simply impossible for them to escape their ears. Okay. They're also afraid of bringing trouble to themselves. It's understandable. Moreover, I feel more comfortable like this. Qin Feiyang smiled. Some people like to be surrounded by a group of people to flatter them. But Qin Feiyang was a little disgusted by this. Because this kind of people were basically very hypocritical. Usually, they would nod and bow to you, but when it came to a critical moment, they would run away faster than a rabbit. They were unreliable. Let's cut the crap and clean up. Otherwise, Feng Yuan will really cripple us. Hua Yi glanced at Qin Feiyang and the other two, then looked at the huge resource hall with a helpless expression. It wasn't easy to enter the resource hall, but in the end, they were asked to clean up. Wasn't this a waste of talent? Mu Tianyang glanced at the corpses of Fatso Jin and the other two, and said, "How should we deal with this?" This, Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, and said, "Why don't we just bury them?" That's not right. After all, Fatso Jin is Feng Yuan's grandson, and this Jin Zhou is also related to Feng Yuan. Mu Tianyang looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "That makes sense." Qin Feiyang nodded. After thinking for a while, he frowned and said, "But Feng Yuan didn't tell us how to deal with it." Hua Yi said, "Just send it to his lounge and let him deal with it himself." Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang's mouth twitched. Now, sending these corpses to Feng Yuan was equivalent to adding fuel to the fire, right? But then again, it was quite interesting to do this. Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Tianyang and said, "Why don't you go and prepare 2 coffins?" Mu Tianyang was stunned. "Anyway, there's no room for negotiation. We're not afraid of offending him again. Besides, we're also thinking for him, lest his grandson's corpse be exposed in the wilderness." Qin Feiyang said. "Yes, yes, yes." Hua Yi nodded. "You guys." Mu Tianyang looked at the two helplessly and nodded, "Okay, I'll go prepare 2 coffins. As for these people, I'll just find a place to bury them." Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi nodded. Mu Tianyang waved his hand, rolled up the corpses, and rose into the air, disappearing into the mountain stream like lightning. Chapter 2086. Not long after. Mu Tianyang carried 2 brand new wooden coffins back. Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi worked together and placed the corpses of Jin Fatso and Jin Zhou into the wooden coffins. Then, they closed the coffins. Who will deliver it? Hua Yi looked at the second floor of the resource hall, then looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Tianyang. "Don't look at me. When doing things, of course the division of labor must be clear. I was the one who brought back these coffins. Delivering them to Feng Yuan is naturally your business." Mu Tianyang said expressionlessly. Hua Yi looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "Then I'll have to trouble Brother Jiang to make a trip?" Qin Feiyang coughed and said, "I've been weak and sickly since I was young. These 2 coffins are too heavy, I can't carry them." Hua Yi rolled his eyes and said helplessly, "Fine, I'll go with you." How could a perfect war god not be able to carry 2 coffins? And he was weak and sickly since he was young. If he was really weak and sickly, how could he cultivate to this extent? If you don't want to go alone, just say it. Don't make such a lame excuse. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly. He carried 1 coffin and said to Hua Yi, "Then let's go." "You're really letting me go?" Hua Yi glared fiercely at Qin Feiyang. He could only carry the other coffin and follow behind Qin Feiyang as they walked towards the entrance of the resource hall. "What's going on? Why are you carrying 2 coffins in? This is so unlucky." Seeing this, the staff in the resource hall hurriedly ran out and stopped Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi. "What are you doing?" Qin Feiyang looked at them suspiciously. "Junior brother Jiang, senior brother Hua, we all know that you're not afraid of anything. But what's the meaning of you carrying 2 coffins in? The staff frowned. We don't want to either. But inside are Jean Fatso and Jean Zhou. You also know the relationship between these 2 people and our palace master. I'll definitely send it to the palace master. Qin Feiyang said innocently. So it's them. Those staff members nodded in understanding, but their expressions changed immediately. Junior Marshal Brother Jiang, the hall master, is currently in a fit of anger. If you send him 2 coffins now, won't you be angering him? You still have to work in the resource hall in the future. You can't do this kind of thing. Those people hurriedly said. Qin Feiyang said, then what do you suggest we do? This, why don't we put it outside first? Those people were somewhat hesitant. No, this is the resource hall. How can we put 2 coffins outside? Qin Feiyang shook his head. That makes sense. Those people nodded and said, then why don't we bury it? Buried? I don't dare to do this kind of thing. You can go if you want. If the palace master pursues this matter, I can't bear the responsibility. Qin Feiyang shook his head like a rattle drum. What should we do? Those people were also worried. Thank you for your kindness. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, I think we should send it to our palace master. If we really make him angry, I'll accept it. Take care. Those people looked at Qin Feiyang, then patted Qin Feiyang's shoulder sympathetically, then turned around and went to do their own things. Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi looked at each other, quickly walked up to the 2nd floor, and stopped in front of a door. Dong! Qin Feiyang reached out and knocked on the door. Get lost! Feng Yuan's angry shout came from inside. Qin Feiyang said, Palace Master, we have something to do. Hearing Qin Feiyang's voice, Feng Yuan was even more annoyed. He shouted, have you finished cleaning? Please calm down, please calm down. We'll go right away. Then we'll put these 2 coffins at the door. Qin Feiyang hurriedly said. He gave Hua Yi a meaningful glance and placed the coffin at the door. Soon after, the 2 of them laughed mischievously and ran to the 1st floor. Brother Jiang, why do I feel like I did something bad when I was young? Hua Yi laughed. Me too. Qin Feiyang laughed. Coffins? At the same time. Feng Yuan, who was in the room, was slightly stunned. Then he got up and opened the door suspiciously. When he saw that there were really 2 coffins at the door, Feng Yuan was immediately furious and shouted, get back here. Duh. Accompanied by a burst of hurried footsteps. Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi rushed up again. Feng Yuan pointed to the coffins at the door and said in a deep voice, what do you mean by this? This, Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi looked at each other and said in unison, Mu Tianyang asked us to get these. Mu Tianyang. Feng Yuan gritted his teeth and shouted, Mu Tianyang, get up here. Outside the square. Mu Tianyang, who was rejoicing in Feng Yuan's misfortune, immediately quivered when he heard Feng Yuan's shout and hurriedly ran into the resource hall. When he ran to the 2nd floor and saw Feng Yuan's angry face, his heart suddenly thumped. He carefully walked to Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi's side, looked at Feng Yuan and asked, Hall Master, what's wrong? You asked them to send this? Feng Yuan asked. This, Mu Tianyang was stunned and immediately glared at Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi. The coffins were indeed brought by him, but this idea was thought of by these 2 bastards, and now they actually pushed the blame on him? How could there be such shameless people? Feng Yuan said angrily, answer my question. Mu Tianyang lowered his head and said in fear, I made the coffins. As he said that, he raised his head and pointed at Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi, and said angrily, but they came up with the idea. You guys are amazing. You came and gave me 2 coffins, cursing me to death. Good, very good. Feng Yuan glanced at the 3 of them and laughed. Qin Feiyang and the other two were stunned. Did Feng Yuan think that they were given to him? It seems that my resource hall can't accommodate you three great Buddhas. Take the coffins and get lost immediately. Feng Yuan shouted. Hall master, it's a misunderstanding. This is not for you. No, it's for you too. This, what do you mean? After going around and around in circles, Qin Feiyang felt dizzy. Let me say it. Mu Tianyang pushed Qin Feiyang away, looked at Feng Yuan, and said, Hall master, these two coffins belong to senior brother Jin and Jin Zhou. Feng Yuan was stunned and lowered his head to look at the coffins. Although senior brother Jin made a mistake and was sentenced to death by the law enforcement hall master, he is still your grandson. So we want to find two coffins so that they can be buried in peace. Mu Tianyang said. Feng Yuan was so angry that he laughed and said, Then shouldn't I thank you? No need to thank me. We are working under you, Palace Master. It is our duty and responsibility to share your burdens. It is what we should do. Mu Tianyang smiled flatteringly. Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Tianyang with disdain. No matter what, he was still an imperial emperor, but he actually showed a servile face. However, Feng Yuan's face was gloomy to the extreme. Feng Yuan looked at Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi, and said, You two go clean up. I have a few words to say to Mu Tianyang alone. Alone? Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi frowned. Feng Yuan said angrily, Didn't you hear clearly? Do you need me to say it again? Yes. Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi quickly nodded, then turned around and left quickly. Mu Tianyang felt a little guilty, and carefully asked, Hall master, I am just a disciple, and we are separated by 108,000 miles. There seems to be nothing to say, right? Feng Yuan said, Do you still remember what you said and when Hai went to find you when you first entered the Nine Heavens Palace? This, Mu Tianyang hesitated. Forgotten? But I haven't forgotten. At that time, you told us that it had nothing to do with Jiang Haotian. But now, you are colluding with them to kill my grandson? Do you know what I want to do now? I want to kill you right now. Feng Yuan shouted. Mu Tianyang's eyes trembled, and hurriedly said, Hall master, please forgive me, this disciple was also forced. Besides, this matter really has nothing to do with me. It was senior brother Jin who played favoritism. Feng Yuan said angrily, but in the end, it was all caused by you. Yes. This disciple is willing to atone for his sins. Mu Tianyang nodded again and again. Feng Yuan sneered, What are you going to use to atone for your sins? Mu Tianyang said respectfully, In the future, if Hall Master needs this disciple to do anything, please tell me, I only ask for Hall Master's forgiveness. Feng Yuan was stunned, and looked at Mu Tianyang. Mu Tianyang lowered his head, not daring to even breathe loudly. Come to my lounge, let's have a good chat. A moment later. Feng Yuan coldly dropped a sentence and turned to enter the lounge. Mu Tianyang looked at Feng Yuan's back, and a light flashed in his eyes, and he also followed into the lounge. Outside the square. Hua Yi looked at the second floor. Hua Yi said, Brother Jiang, what do they have to talk about in private? I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head thoughtfully. Wait. Is this Mu Tianyang reliable? He won't betray us, right? Hua Yi was surprised. Betray us? Qin Feiyang was stunned, and gradually frowned. Frankly speaking, Mu Tianyang might really do such a thing. Chapter 2087. Second floor, resting room. The coffin was still placed at the door. Feng Yuan sat in front of the tea table and said to Mu Tianyang, Close the door. Close the door. Mu Tianyang felt more and more uneasy. He turned around and closed the door, then stood at the door and looked at Feng Yuan silently. Feng Yuan waved his hand and said, "Don't be so restrained. Come and sit." "That's not right." Mu Tianyang was a little hesitant. "This old man told you to sit. Sit down quickly." Feng Yuan raised his eyebrows. "Yes." Mu Tianyang hurriedly ran to the tea table and sat opposite Feng Yuan, trembling with fear. In fact, he was pretending to be afraid. Although in terms of strength, he was thousands of miles away from Feng Yuan, as an imperial emperor, he was born with courage that ordinary people did not have. Feng Yuan's aura was not enough to suppress him. However, there was a saying that when one was under the eaves, one had to lower one's head. Sometimes, one had to pretend to be weak. Feng Yuan made tea and asked, "Just now, you said that if this old man needs anything, I will tell you, right?" "Yes." Mu Tianyang nodded. "It was just a joke." "Did he take it seriously?" "Good. From now on, follow this old man. This old man will guarantee that you will have a meteoric rise in the Empyrean Palace." Feng Yuan said. This, Mu Tianyang's expression went blank. Wasn't this a little too direct? At least be a little more tactful. Feng Yuan said, "I don't like to beat around the bush." Mu Tianyang pondered for a while and said, "Temple Master, this is a little too sudden. Moreover, I don't think you will trust me." Feng Yuan poured 2 cups of tea. He pushed 1 cup in front of Mu Tianyang and picked up the other cup himself. He placed it at the tip of his nose and sniffed it. Then, he took a sip and said, "Of course I won't trust you." "Then why do you want me to follow you?" Mu Tianyang frowned. "Don't you know that there is a kind of control secret technique in this world that can control others' lives?" Feng Yuan said. "You want to control me?" Mu Tianyang immediately stood up and glared at Feng Yuan. Feng Yuan said indifferently, "Don't be agitated. Sit down." Mu Tianyang didn't sit down. He even wanted to turn around and leave. What a joke. As a god monarch, how could he allow his life to be in the hands of others? "I told you to sit down. Didn't you hear me?" Feng Yuan's gaze turned cold, and his tone carried a commanding tone. Mu Tianyang raised his eyebrows imperceptibly and returned to his seat. "Don't get too worked up. Actually, this old man doesn't want to control you, and this old man has never controlled anyone before. But I'm sure you know that Guyong's betrayal was a huge blow to this old man. You might not know this, but those who are familiar with this old man know how well this old man treats Guyong. Not only did I promote and nurture him, I even took care of his family. It can be said that this old man treats him like my own son. But I never expected that he would betray me. Facing this matter, this old man's heart is pained. I also learned from it that apart from family, there is no one in this world that is worthy of trust. Sometimes, you can't even trust your family. So, you have to understand this old man." Feng Yuan said. Mu Tianyang frowned. "I can understand your feelings, but I'm a person who doesn't like being controlled by others. But you have to know that sometimes, it's not up to you to choose. But don't worry. After this old man controls you, I won't force you to do anything. Everything depends on your willingness. Of course, if you follow me, we have to be of the same mind. Whether it's my enemy or your enemy, they are all our common enemies." Feng Yuan smiled. This, Mu Tianyang hesitated. A wise man submits to circumstances. There's no harm in following this old man. If you really can't make a decision now, I can give you a few days to consider. Feng Yuan said. Mu Tianyang pondered for a moment and looked up at Feng Yuan. "Are you sure you won't force me?" "Of course." Feng Yuan nodded. Mu Tianyang added, "Can you guarantee that I'll have a meteoric rise?" I can immediately appoint you as the manager of the resource hall. In other words, apart from me, everyone in the resource hall will have to obey your orders. Feng Yuan said. That's like being above everyone else. Mu Tianyang was slightly tempted. Yes, that's right. Beneath one person and above all others. Feng Yuan nodded. All right. Mu Tianyang clenched his teeth and said, as long as you keep your word, I'll follow you. You're indeed a smart man. Feng Yuan chuckled and performed a hand seal. A black seal the size of a baby's palm was swiftly formed. The seal was a pentagram with a dark glow, emitting an eerie aura. Feng Yuan said, this is the soul-controlling technique, able to control one's god soul. Soul-controlling technique? Mu Tianyang observed the black seal and frowned. I know quite a few soul-controlling techniques, each of them has their own strengths. May I ask Hall Master, what's the strength of this soul-controlling technique? The strength of this soul-controlling technique is that after being controlled, I can erase the other party's god soul with just a thought. Feng Yuan said. It's similar to the slave seal, Mu Tianyang mumbled and asked curiously, I've heard of some soul-controlling techniques that can peek into the other party's thoughts and sense the other party's location. There is such a soul-controlling technique. However, such soul-controlling techniques are very rare. From what I've heard, only legendary-level soul-controlling techniques have this ability. Feng Yuan said. What? Only legendary-level soul-controlling techniques have this ability? Does that mean the slave seal is legendary level? Mu Tianyang was secretly shocked. He had not expected the slave seal to be so terrifying. What's wrong? Are you afraid that I'll peek into your inner thoughts? Feng Yuan looked at Mu Tianyang and asked. If I don't do anything wrong, I won't be afraid of ghosts knocking on my door. What am I afraid of? I'm just curious. I also want to see if there's a chance to get such a soul-controlling technique. Mu Tianyang said with a smile. Feng Yuan said, don't even think about it. Even the martial arts treasury doesn't have such a soul-controlling technique. It might not even exist in the entire North region. A trace of disappointment crept onto Mu Tianyang's face. Enough. Relax your mind and don't resist. The process may be a little painful, but it will be over soon. After Feng Yuan finished speaking, he waved his hand, and the black seal turned into a stream of light and entered Mu Tianyang's head. Mu Tianyang's body trembled immediately. His hands stared at the armrest of the chair, and his face was full of pain. However, he did not even make a sound during the entire process. It could be seen that his willpower was not inferior to Qin Feiyang's. In less than a few breaths, the control was completed. Feng Yuan also smiled. He looked at Mu Tianyang and said, since you have followed me, I won't treat you unfairly. Feng Yuan took out an interspatial ring and threw it to Mu Tianyang. What's this? Mu Tianyang caught the interspatial ring and looked at Feng Yuan suspiciously. Feng Yuan smiled and said, these are the soul stones that I carry with me. There are about 200 to 300 million. 200 to 300 million. Mu Tianyang's eyes trembled. He immediately checked the interspatial ring and was stunned. There were indeed a mountain of soul stones in the interspatial ring. Are they all for me? After a while, Mu Tianyang came back to his senses. He looked up at Feng Yuan and asked in disbelief. Yes. Feng Yuan nodded. Thank you, Temple Master. Mu Tianyang immediately got up and bowed to thank him. Feng Yuan waved his hand and smiled. We're all on the same side. There's no need to be so polite. By the way, I heard you say that you were forced to be with Jiang Haotian and the others. Why? It's a long story. Actually, Jiang Haotian and I have known each other for a long time, and we have always been rivals. Mu Tianyang sighed. Then why did Jiang Rushuang call you a heartless man in public when you entered Empyrean Palace? Feng Yuan was suspicious. It's their plan. Since Jiang Haotian and Feng Zijuan had a conflict in the treasure pavilion, Jiang Haotian knew that you would not let him go. So, he wanted to drag me down with him to share some of the pressure. You've seen his methods. He's extremely scheming. I can't beat him at all. Mu Tianyang sighed deeply. There was a trace of grievance in his expression. I see. Feng Yuan suddenly understood and asked suspiciously, then what's his background? Mu Tianyang said, he's the same as me, born in a small village. However, due to our good talent and luck, we've managed to obtain quite a bit of good fortune. That's why we've slowly reached where we are today. Feng Yuan said meaningfully, your luck isn't an ordinary kind of good. What do you mean? Mu Tianyang was suspicious. When you entered Empyrean Palace for the test, this old man was also observing in the conference hall. Your dagger should be a legendary divine weapon, right? Feng Yuan said. This, Mu Tianyang was a little flustered. Don't worry. Although legendary divine weapons are rare, it's not like this old man doesn't have any. Feng Yuan smiled faintly. What? You also have a legendary divine weapon? Mu Tianyang was shocked. Of course. After all, this old man is a hall master, the ruler of Empyrean Palace. How can I not have a trump card? And not only this old man, Shangguan Fenglan, the 10 great elders, and so on all have terrifying trump cards. Feng Yuan said. Mu Tianyang's face was blank. Waves were rolling in his heart. It seemed that he had underestimated Empyrean Palace. All right then, go and do your work. This old man will arrange for you to be in charge of the resource hall. In the future, you'll be the manager of the resource hall. Feng Yuan smiled. Thank you, hall master, for your help. Mu Tianyang quickly got up and said respectfully. Feng Yuan said, this is just a small benefit. As long as you work hard for this old man, there will be bigger surprises in the future. Yes. Mu Tianyang nodded, but after pondering for a while, he said, but hall master, I feel that I shouldn't be in charge of the resource hall for the time being. Why? Feng Yuan looked at him doubtfully. 2 reasons. First, I just came to the resource hall. If I become the manager of the resource hall, the others won't be convinced. Second, Jiang Haotian. A cold light flashed in Mu Tianyang's eyes. Chapter 2088. Jiang Haotian? Feng Yuan was taken aback. He took a sip from his teacup and looked at Mu Tianyang. I'd like to hear the details. You said it just now. After following you, whether it's your enemy or my enemy, they are our common enemy. So now, I naturally have to help you get rid of this person. But I know this person too well. Ordinary means can't deal with him at all. So, I plan to lurk around him for the time being. Mu Tianyang said. Lurk? Feng Yuan frowned. Because of senior brother Jean, I have gained his trust. If you let me manage the resource hall now, it's equivalent to telling him that I betrayed him. This way, I won't be able to deal with him in the future. On the contrary, if I continue to lurk around him now, my chances will be much higher. Mu Tianyang smiled. Feng Yuan laughed happily and said, this old man really didn't misjudge you. You're a talent. All right, I'll do as you say. Thank you for your trust, Palace Master. This disciple will definitely not disappoint Palace Master's expectations. Mu Tianyang said solemnly. Good, good, good. Go back to him now. If there's anything, immediately report to this old man. Feng Yuan said. Yes. Mu Tianyang nodded, then took out the image crystal. After establishing the contract bridge, Mu Tianyang turned and left the lounge. Feng Yuan walked to the door and looked at Mu Tianyang's back with a trace of a smile in his eyes. With the soul control technique, he wasn't afraid of Mu Tianyang. Then, he lowered his head and looked at the two coffins on the ground. The smile in his eyes disappeared and was replaced by killing intent. Blood for blood, this old man will definitely make you regret it for the rest of your life. Outside, Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi were holding a rag and wiping the doors and windows of the resource hall. After Mu Tianyang walked out, he immediately ran in front of the two with a face full of anger and grievance. He said, "The two of you are too much. We clearly did it together, but in the end, you actually want me to take the blame alone? It's just a small matter. Is there a need to be so angry?" Qin Feiyang said with a smile. "Small matter? If you have the ability, why don't you go to Feng Yuan and tell him that you did it alone?" Mu Tianyang said angrily. Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi looked at each other and smiled awkwardly. Hua Yi threw a rag to Mu Tianyang and curiously asked, "Brother Mu, you and Feng Yuan have been chatting for so long, what did you talk about?" Mu Tianyang glanced at the two of them and snorted, "I'm not telling you." Still angry? Hua Yi stared blankly for a moment before helplessly saying, "All right, all right, all right. We were wrong before. We apologize to you." Mu Tianyang said expressionlessly, "An apology is enough? You should at least show some sincerity. You're a grown man. Is there a need for that?" Hua Yi was speechless. "Yes." Mu Tianyang nodded. Hua Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Mu Tianyang turned around and wiped the door and window with the rag while saying, "I won't hide it from you. I've been bribed by Feng Yuan." "What?" Hua Yi was stunned. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "Are you sure you're not joking with us?" "No." Mu Tianyang shook his head. Hua Yi said angrily, "Damn, how can you be like this? We trusted you so much, but you actually betrayed us? All of you have joined forces to make me the scapegoat. Why should I still wallow in the mire with all of you?" Mu Tianyang sneered. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said in a deep voice, "Mu Tianyang, I'm not joking with you. I'm not joking with you either. I've really been bribed by him. He even gave me 200 or 300 million soul stones." Mu Tianyang said. "Brother Jiang, did you see that? This person is unreliable." Hua Yi looked at Mu Tianyang with disdain. Qin Feiyang looked at Hua Yi and then looked at Mu Tianyang. His eyes flashed with a smile as he said, "Brother Hua, you've misunderstood. He didn't betray us." "He didn't?" Hua Yi was stunned and said, "He said it himself." Qin Feiyang said, "Think about it. If he really betrayed us, would he still be standing here and cleaning with us? That makes sense." Hua Yi nodded. Mu Tianyang rolled his eyes at Hua Yi and said, "Grow a brain and think about it. If I really betrayed you, you'd all be corpses now." Hua Yi pouted. Qin Feiyang asked, "Mu Tianyang, what's going on? It's true that I was bribed by him and he gave me soul stones. He also used a secret technique called soul controlling technique to control me. However, I don't really want to follow him." Mu Tianyang said. Qin Feiyang was shocked. "What? You were actually controlled by him?" "It's nothing. I've inquired about this soul controlling technique in advance. It can only control my divine soul. It can't peek into my inner thoughts or sense my location." Mu Tianyang said. Qin Feiyang frowned, "Even so, it's too dangerous. Don't you still have the enslavement seal? When the time comes, use the enslavement seal to help me remove it." Mu Tianyang said. Qin Feiyang said, "But I'm not sure if the enslavement seal can remove the soul controlling technique." "It definitely can. Because according to my inquiry, your enslavement seal is very likely to be a legendary level control technique. Mu Tianyang said. Legendary level? Qin Feiyang was stunned. And I also learned from Feng Yuan that not only does he have a legendary level artifact, but even Shengguan Fenglan and the others also have one. These people are not easy to deal with. Mu Tianyang sighed, quite worried. Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi looked at each other, and their pupils couldn't help but shrink. They all had legendary level artifacts. Wasn't this a little too terrifying? But it doesn't matter. With our means, as long as we work together, we can definitely nibble away at Feng Yuan step by step. Mu Tianyang sneered. Then I'll have to trouble you. Qin Feiyang smiled. Mu Tianyang said indifferently, as long as you don't be ungrateful in the future. Qin Feiyang smiled. He still knew what was important and what was important. Dealing with Feng Yuan was the most important thing. However, he also understood in his heart that Mu Tianyang approached Feng Yuan not entirely to deal with Feng Yuan, but the biggest reason was still the soul vein. Because only by gaining Feng Yuan's trust could he find out where the soul vein of Nine Heavens Palace was hidden in the fastest speed. Time flew by. The three of them spent half a day and finally cleaned the resource hall and the square. Originally, they wanted to take the opportunity to clean the warehouse, but they were stopped by Feng Yuan, who directly said that the warehouse was not a place they could go. The three of them did not insist and officially worked in the resource hall. In fact, the work in the resource hall was very simple. It was either keeping accounts, helping the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace to exchange for soul stones, or issuing tasks, tidying up the warehouse, or distributing soul stones. After familiarizing themselves with the work process, Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi arranged to help the disciples exchange for soul stones. For example, if the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace brought precious herbs or rare treasures to the resource hall, they would be responsible for appraising and exchanging them for soul stones. As for Mu Tianyang's work, that was even simpler, which was to distribute soul stones. And this distribution of soul stones was the soul stones that the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace received every month. Although this work was simple, it was very cumbersome and the workload was also huge. After all, there were too many disciples of Nine Heavens Palace, and they were busy every day. Just like Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi, from time to time, there would be people bringing all kinds of strange things to the resource hall to exchange for soul stones. The most important thing was that you could not misestimate the price. If it was too low, the disciples would definitely be unhappy. If it was too high, Feng Yuan would definitely not forgive them. After this first day, the three of them were quite tired. When they returned to the cave at night, they did not even want to cultivate, lying on the bed and sleeping soundly. The next 2 days. A shocking news spread in Nine Heavens Palace. Hey, do you know? The Treasure Pavilion is going to auction a pill called For Symbols Infinite Divine Pill. This pill can let War God break through cultivation. What? There's such a pill in the world? This news has already spread throughout the entire North region. It's absolutely true. When will the auction be held? In 2 days, the location will be at Sky Dragon City's Treasure Pavilion. And it's said that the Treasure Pavilion has changed the previous rules and will be auctioning with soul stones. Soul stones? Who can afford that? Whether or not I can afford it, I have to go and take a look. It's too incredible. If you want to go, you have to make an appointment in advance. Otherwise, if it's too crowded, you won't even have the chance to enter the Treasure Pavilion. How could a pill that could let War God break through not be tempting? Almost all the disciples below Monarch God were rubbing their hands together. The night before the auction, there was already a long line on the street in front of the Treasure Pavilion's entrance. And it was also in the evening that Qin Feiyang dragged his tired body back to the cave. But once he entered the cave, he could not help but be stunned. He saw a woman sitting in the guest hall. The woman was tall and her black hair was like a waterfall. Her tender skin was like a fairy. Qin Feiyang came back to his senses and hurriedly closed the cave's stone door. He walked in front of the woman and bowed. "Greetings, Hall Master." "That's right." This woman was Shangguan Fenglan. Shangguan Fenglan looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile and asked, "How do you feel after entering the resource hall these 2 days?" "I'm regretting it." "Why didn't you cultivate properly? Why did you go to that damned place to join in the fun?" Qin Feiyang shook his head. Shangguan Fenglan smiled. "It's sweet after the bitter." "I hope so." Qin Feiyang sighed and said with a smile, "Hall Master, you didn't come here to care about me, right?" "Of course, no." Shangguan Fenglan said. Qin Feiyang's brows flashed with a hint of doubt. He said, "Then may I ask what orders you have, Hall Master?" Shangguan Fenglan said, "There's something I want to ask you. Send a message to Mu Tianyang first and ask him to come over as well." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded, took out the image crystal, and sent a message to Mu Tianyang. After Mu Tianyang received the message, he was also puzzled. However, he did not dare to delay and immediately rushed over. Chapter 2089. A moment passed. Mu Tianyang finally arrived. He bowed and said, "Greetings, Lord Temple Master." Shangguan Fenglan nodded and looked at Qin Feiyang. "Close the door." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and the stone door closed tightly. Shangguan Fenglan condensed another boundary that enveloped the entire cave abode. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang looked at each other with a trace of surprise in their eyes. Wasn't this too cautious? Shangguan Fenglan sized up the boundary and glanced at the two. She smiled faintly and said, "Sit. It's better for us to stand." Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang smiled embarrassedly. They were a little nervous after being teased by Shangguan Fenglan. Shangguan Fenglan shook her head and smiled. "Don't be nervous. This is not bad news for you. On the contrary, it's a good fortune." "Good fortune?" Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang looked at each other. This woman would give them a good fortune? She must be kidding. Shangguan Fenglan said, "You should know about the purple gold divine pagoda." "Yes. That's where the heaven roll disciples are." Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang nodded. Shangguan Fenglan asked, "Do you want to go in?" "Of course." Mu Tianyang nodded without hesitation. However, Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows without a trace. To be honest, he was not interested in the purple gold divine pagoda at all. Because even the time array on the 10th floor of the purple gold divine pagoda could not compare to the ancient castle. But why did Shangguan Fenglan suddenly ask such a question? Shangguan Fenglan smiled and said, "If you want to go in, you have a chance this time." "What chance?" Mu Tianyang was a little anxious. Shangguan Fenglan said, "The first elder said to make an exception and let you enter the purple gold divine pagoda. He will also give you 100,000 soul stones every month." Mu Tianyang was stunned. Not only let them enter the purple gold divine pagoda, but also give them 100,000 soul stones every month. This was a pie falling from the sky. Wait a minute. How could the first elder, this old fox, be so kind? There must be something fishy going on. There was definitely something fishy going on. Mu Tianyang was not an idiot. After thinking carefully, he calmed down and transmitted his voice, "Qin Feiyang, what do you think this woman and the great elder are playing?" "Who knows?" Qin Feiyang replied. "How is it? This treatment isn't bad, right?" Shangguan Fenglan looked at the two of them and asked with a smile. "Not bad indeed." Mu Tianyang nodded and said with a smile, but I don't think it's for free. Of course. There is no such thing as a free lunch anywhere in the world. However, Great Elder only has a small request. Shangguan Fenglan smiled. A small request. The two of them looked at each other, their faces full of suspicion. Shangguan Fenglan said, Grand Elder wants the pill formula of the four symbols infinite divine pill. Ugh! Qin Feiyang and Qin Feng were dumbfounded. This was still considered a small request. I also know that Great Elder is forcing you to do something you don't want. However, he doesn't mean to force you, he just wants me to ask for your opinion. But then again, you are now disciples of the Nine Heavens Palace. It's only right that you contribute to the Nine Heavens Palace, right? Shangguan Fenglan smiled. Mu Tianyang said, that's not right. What's wrong? Shangguan Fenglan was puzzled. Why did we enter the Nine Heavens Palace? Isn't it to get a better cultivation environment and resources, as well as the protection of big shots like you? Why do you want us to contribute now? Besides, we weren't directly recruited by you. We passed the test set by you and went through untold hardships to get in. In other words, whether it was before or after we entered the Nine Heavens Palace, you didn't give us any help. It's all because of our own ability that we were able to get to where we are today. Then why do you want us to contribute to the Nine Heavens Palace now? Mu Tianyang said. These words were ruthless, causing Shangguan Fenglan's expression to turn ugly. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, Brother Mu's words are reasonable. Shut up. Mu Tianyang, I admit that I didn't help him, but you, back then, if it wasn't for me, you would have died in Feng Wenhai's hands before we entered the Nine Heavens Palace. Shangguan Fenglan said angrily. That's a little pompous. Selfless help, that's true help. And you saved me because you wanted me to deal with Feng Yuan. This is an equal trade, how can it be considered help? Qin Feiyang said. Shangguan Fenglan fell silent. Because she couldn't find a reason to refute. From the beginning, she and Qin Feiyang had a relationship of mutual benefit. There are a few unpleasant words that I have to say, so don't be angry. Qin Feiyang suddenly spoke again. Shangguan Fenglan raised her head and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, Go ahead. Qin Feiyang said, I think, compared to the treasure pavilion, you are too weak, especially the first elder. What do you mean? Shangguan Fenglan frowned. Your sister Shangguan Xiao must have told the deputy pavilion master and the pavilion master about the four symbols infinite divine pill. But look at them. Until now, they haven't come to us, and they haven't even mentioned the pill formula. But what about the first elder? The first thing he thought of was to take the pill formula from us. I just can't figure it out. We are both giants of the northern region, but why is the gap so big? Qin Feiyang said. You, Shangguan Fenglan's face was full of anger. Don't mess around. We agreed in advance that you can't be angry. Furthermore, I am targeting the first elder, and not you, Hall Master. Qin Feiyang hurriedly stretched out his hand, his face full of vigilance. Shangguan Fenglan shook her head and laughed, then shook her head and sighed. Actually, the first elder wants the pill formula not for himself, but for the entire Empyrean Palace. I know. After all, only Mu Tianyang and I know how to refine the four symbols infinite divine pill. And now, Mu Tianyang and I are cooperating with the treasure pavilion. If the Empyrean Palace wants the four symbols infinite divine pill, they can only buy it from the treasure pavilion at a high price. In other words, the wealth of the Empyrean Palace will gradually be transferred to the treasure pavilion. In the long run, the development of the treasure pavilion will definitely be faster than the Empyrean Palace, or even surpass it. Qin Feiyang said. When Shangguan Fenglan heard this, she looked rather surprised. She didn't expect this boy to be so far-sighted. Qin Feiyang said again, but what does this have to do with me? I just want to find a place to cultivate in peace. If the Empyrean Palace can't even give me this, then what's the point of staying in the Empyrean Palace? Brother Jiang, why don't we go to the treasure pavilion? I believe that the people there won't force us to hand over the pill formula. Mu Tianyang suddenly said. Qin Feiyang was stunned, then slapped his head and said in annoyance, why didn't I think of that? Good idea. Shut up. Shengguan Fenglan immediately reprimanded, glancing at the closed stone door, you'd better bury this kind of words in your stomachs in the future. Otherwise, when it falls into the first elder's ears, you'll suffer. Just kidding, just kidding. We don't have the guts. Qin Feiyang and Shengguan Fenglan laughed awkwardly. Better not. Although you have outstanding talent, in the Northern Territory, your life and death are in the hands of the First Elder. Shengguan Fenglan said in a low voice. Understood. The Deputy Pavilion Master is a good example. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. With the protection of the Treasure Pavilion Master, the Deputy Pavilion Master still lost a leg. It was not hard to imagine how terrifying the First Elder's means were. Shut up. Don't mention the Deputy Pavilion Master again. Shengguan Fenglan shouted again. Yes, yes, yes. Qin Feiyang nodded repeatedly. Shengguan Fenglan exhaled and asked, you really don't agree to contribute the pill formula? Both of them nodded without hesitation. Shengguan Fenglan looked at the two of them deeply, then got up and said, well, I'll report to the First Elder as it is. I can't predict what will happen in the end. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, I believe the First Elder will make a wise choice. You're not worried at all. Shengguan Fenglan smiled coldly, then dispelled the barrier and left quickly. After Shengguan Fenglan left, Qin Feiyang said angrily, as expected, there's trouble again. Mu Tianyang frowned and said, what if the First Elder really forces us to hand over the pill formula? Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and asked, what do you think we should do? I won't give the pill formula to him anyway. Mu Tianyang sneered. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, I thought you would say that you have no choice but to give it to him. You must be kidding. What's in it for us if we give the pill formula to him? The 100,000 soul stones per month is not worth mentioning compared to the share we get with the treasure pavilion. As for the purple gold divine pagoda, to be honest, I don't care too much about it. Mu Tianyang's face was full of disdain, but suddenly his eyes rolled and he smiled slyly. If they can snatch your ancient castle and give it to me, I'll definitely agree. Naive. After the ancient castle is sealed, even I can't take it out, let alone them. Besides, even if they have a way to take it out, do you think they'll give you such a heaven-defying treasure? Qin Feiyang sneered. Mu Tianyang shook his head helplessly. That's right. If the big shots of the Ninth Heaven Palace knew that the time array in the ancient castle was even more terrifying than the purple gold divine pagoda, they would definitely take it for themselves. 1 day was equal to 1 year, how heaven-defying was that? Forget it, I'll go back first. Let me know if anything happens. After saying that, Mu Tianyang turned into a stream of light and flew out of the cave like lightning, disappearing without a trace. Deep in the Ninth Heaven Palace, Shengguan Fenglan stood respectfully in front of the First Elder. The First Elder, on the other hand, was sitting on a chair with his head lowered. He was silent and his expression was uncertain. After a long time, the First Elder looked up at Shengguan Fenglan and frowned. Facing the temptation of the purple gold divine pagoda and 100,000 soul stones per month, they really aren't moved at all? At first, they were a little tempted, but when I asked them to contribute the pill formula of the 4 symbols infinite divine pill, they directly refused. Shengguan Fenglan smiled helplessly. Did you tell them that there's a time array in the purple gold divine pagoda? The First Elder asked. All the disciples of the Ninth Heaven Palace know about this. Do I still need to say it? Shengguan Fenglan smiled bitterly. Then what's going on? The first elder was stunned. They could actually refuse the temptation of a time array? Chapter 2090. Shengguan Fenglan pondered for a moment and said, Great Elder, I think we can't force them. They are disciples of our Nine Heavens Palace. Is it wrong for this old man to ask them to contribute the pill recipe? Besides, this old man didn't ask for it for nothing. I also gave them a lot of benefits. Great Elder said angrily. But they may not care about the benefits you gave them. It's better to let nature take its course. In case, at this point, for some reason, Shengguan Fenglan suddenly stopped. Not only was there a trace of fear on her face, but there was also a trace of regret. In case what? Great Elder was suspicious. This, Shengguan Fenglan hesitated. There's no harm in saying it. Great Elder said. Shengguan Fenglan took a deep breath, looked at Great Elder, and said, in case we repeat the mistakes of Qin Badian. Great Elder's face suddenly became gloomy. I knew you would be angry when I mentioned this person, but I can't deny that our Nine Heavens Palace was too strong back then. Otherwise, he wouldn't have disappeared. If he hadn't disappeared, then with his talent, I'm afraid he would have been in existence at the level of Palace Master or Vice Palace Master by now. Shengguan Fenglan sighed. Enough, enough. This old man doesn't want to hear this name again. Great Elder waved his hand impatiently. Shengguan Fenglan heard this and sighed inwardly. Then, she fell silent and quietly looked at Great Elder. Huff. After a long time, Great Elder let out a long breath. His expression suddenly became a little haggard. He waved his hand at Shengguan Fenglan and said, This matter is up to you. Yes. Shengguan Fenglan bowed and replied, then turned and left. Qin Badian, Lu Zhengyang, the Great Elder also stood up and walked to the window. He looked at the night sky outside, and there was an indescribable sadness on his face. Early the next morning, Qin Feiyang, Mu Tianyang, and Hua Yi went to the resource hall early as usual. Not long after, Feng Yuan slowly walked down from the second floor with his hands behind his back. Greetings, Hall Master. Everyone in the resource hall, including Qin Feiyang and the other two, immediately bowed. Yes. Feng Yuan indifferently nodded and said, Jiang Haotian, Hua Yi, Mu Tianyang, come here. The three of them looked at each other and hurried to Feng Yuan's side. Feng Yuan took out a universe pouch and threw it to the three of them, saying, Go to the treasure pavilion immediately. No matter what, you have to bid for a 4 symbols infinite divine pellet. Mu Tianyang asked suspiciously, What do you want the 4 symbols infinite divine pellet for? Feng Yuan said, Don't worry about that. Go. Yes. Mu Tianyang nodded and put away the Qiankuan bag. Then, he called out to Qin Feiyang and the other two, and walked outside. Mu Tianyang, this old man has already arranged people at the north gate. Think of a way to bring them to the north gate. When the time comes, you will help from the side. You must eliminate these 2 people. Just as the 3 of them stepped out of the door, Feng Yuan's voice suddenly sounded in Mu Tianyang's mind. Mu Tianyang was stunned. He did not turn around, nor did he stop. He replied in his mind, understood. Regarding this, Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi did not notice. The 3 of them left the Nine Heavens Palace. When they reached the bottom of the sky stairway, Hua Yi took out a transmission altar and said, Are we going directly to the treasure pavilion? No. Go to the north gate. Mu Tianyang transmitted his voice. N. Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi looked at him in surprise. He was actually transmitting his voice. Mu Tianyang said in his mind, When we left the resource hall, Feng Yuan secretly told me that he has arranged people at the north gate. What? That old bastard wants to make a move on us so soon? Hua Yi said angrily. You should feel honored. If it were someone else, would he be so meticulous? Mu Tianyang gloated. Hua Yi rolled his eyes at him and glanced at the white-haired old man beside the sky stairway. While reviving the altar, he transmitted his voice, since he has set up an ambush at the north gate, then we should avoid it. Why are we taking the initiative to send ourselves up? Of course it's to catch his weakness. Mu Tianyang laughed secretly. Weakness? Hua Yi was suspicious. Brother Mu means that since these people were arranged by Feng Yuan, as long as we capture them alive, Feng Yuan won't be able to defend himself. Qin Feiyang secretly said. So that's how it is. Hua Yi suddenly understood. At this time, the altar was revived. The three of them walked up one after another. The next moment, they descended on the plains outside the north gate. On the plains, there was already a sea of people. The city gate was also crowded. Without a doubt, these people were all here to participate in the auction. Hua Yi swept his gaze below and sighed with emotion. I've never seen such a scene before. This is good. The more people there are, the more the value of the four symbols infinite divine pill will be reflected. Mu Tianyang secretly laughed. Qin Feiyang nodded. He could already imagine that there would be a fierce battle in the auction house of the treasure pavilion today. However, this was not a problem he was concerned about. He scanned the crowd, looking for Feng Yuan's lackeys. These people must be lurking in the crowd. The people arranged by Feng Yuan are definitely not simple characters. With the strength of the three of us, can we stop them? Hua Yi transmitted his voice, a little worried. Don't worry. The moment we left the resource hall, I had already secretly informed Mu Qing, who was cultivating in the space divine object, to send a message to Shengguan Qiu and pass it on to Shengguan Fenglan. I think Shengguan Fenglan is already rushing towards Sky Dragon City. She might even be here. Mu Tianyang secretly thought, at the same time scanning the void. As the hall master of the law enforcement hall, Shengguan Fenglan must have a space divine object. And now, she might be hiding in the space divine object, monitoring everything here. You've already informed Lan, Hua Yi was stunned, and smiled bitterly. It's been arranged without anyone knowing. You and Brother Jiang are indeed difficult to deal with. Mu Tianyang was about to be proud. But suddenly, his expression was slightly stunned, and he turned his head to stare at Hua Yi strangely. Qin Feiyang also looked at Hua Yi with an extremely strange expression. What's wrong? Hua Yi looked at the two of them suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said, if I didn't hear wrongly, you seem to have said the two words Lan, just now. That's right. Is there a problem? Hua Yi nodded and asked puzzledly. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang looked at each other, and asked again, the Lan you're talking about, it can't be Shengguan Fenglan, right? Nonsense, who else could it be if not her? Hua Yi rolled his eyes. Qin Feiyang and the other man's faces began to twitch. Lan This form of address was too intimate. Qin Feiyang said, isn't the speed of your development a little too fast? Hua Yi chuckled and said, things like feelings, it must be fast. Awesome. Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi couldn't help but give a thumbs up. Not to mention other things, just this point alone, they couldn't even catch up. It was just that they didn't know if this form of address had been approved by Shengguan Fenglan. Or was it just Hua Yi's wishful thinking? Alright, don't worry about these unimportant issues, let's go. Mu Tianyang shook his head and flew towards the North City gate. Hua Yi hurriedly said, wait, if Lan hasn't come yet, then wouldn't we be walking into a trap? We can't wait. If we wait any longer, those people arranged by Feng Yuan will probably see through the clues. If she really hasn't come, then we'll go to the Black Tortoise world. Mu Tianyang thought to himself. Black Tortoise World? Hua Yi was suspicious. Mu Tianyang was slightly taken aback, and said, he still doesn't know about the Black Tortoise World? He's been there. But he doesn't know that it's the Black Tortoise World, nor does he know that it's an independent small world. He only thinks that it's a spatial divine object. Qin Feiyang thought to himself. So it's like that. Mu Tianyang muttered, and flew towards the North City Gate while saying, the Black Tortoise World is Brother Zhang's spatial divine object. Hua Yi nodded in realization, and followed beside Qin Feiyang. He scanned the sea of people below, and said, this Feng Yuan is also smart, choosing today to assassinate us. There are so many people today, it's easy to hide. Mu Tianyang smiled inwardly. It's indeed easy to hide. If you hadn't gained his trust, we wouldn't have thought that there's one of his lackeys among these people. Hua Yi thought to himself. Isn't that Jiang Haotian? And the number 1 on the Earth leaderboard, Mu Tianyang. They're actually here too. It seems that they're also very interested in the 4 symbols infinite divine pellet. Aren't you talking nonsense? They're all perfect war gods. If the 4 symbols infinite divine pellet is really useful, then they can directly step into the half-step divine sovereign realm. How can they not be moved by such kindness? Moreover, they don't lack soul stones. In the last battle with Shi Tai, Mu Tianyang won a total of 50 million soul stones, Jiang Haotian and Hua Yi won even more. Especially Jiang Haotian, not only did he win 300 billion soul stones from Jin Fatso, but he also won 100 million soul stones from Feng Zihan. He's a true tycoon. This time, he'll probably win for sure. Below. Some disciples of Nine Heavens Palace recognized Qin Feiyang and the other 2 and immediately began to discuss in low voices. So he's the Jiang Haotian that was framed by Feng Wenhai. He's indeed a dragon amongst men, his bearing is extraordinary. Although Jiang Haotian's name had long been famous in the northern region, many people came to Sky Dragon City for the first time and saw Qin Feiyang for the first time, so their eyes were filled with curiosity. Hua Yi said, Brother Jiang, even I'm a bit jealous of your fame. Take it if you like it. I don't want it anyway. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Is fame something that others can take away? Hua Yi was speechless. The 3 of them chatted and laughed, greeting the people below from time to time, but secretly, they were always vigilant. They were about 500 to 600 feet away from the city gate. Whoosh! Suddenly. 4 ordinary-looking middle-aged men in simple clothes soared into the sky from the crowd behind and flew towards the North City Gate like lightning. Hua Yi was startled and glanced at the 4 of them, sending a message, is it them? I don't know. Feng Yuan only said that he had people arranged, but he didn't say who they were. Mu Tianyang thought. We can't be careless. These 4 people seem to be flying towards the North City Gate, but they're in the same line as us. When they get close, they'll suddenly attack us from behind and we won't even have a chance to fight back. Qin Feiyang sent a message. Yes. Hua Yi and Mu Tianyang secretly responded and became more vigilant. Chapter 2091. The distance was getting closer and closer. The 4 middle-aged men only curiously sized up Qin Feiyang and the other 2 during the whole process. They looked harmless to humans and animals. If they didn't know beforehand, they definitely wouldn't have suspected them. The distance between the front and the back was only about 100 feet. For war gods and above, this distance was within reach. Whoosh! At this moment, the 4 men suddenly accelerated and went straight for Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi's backs. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. It's really them. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 felt a chill in their hearts. At such a close distance, if they weren't prepared, they wouldn't be able to react at all. The people below were undoubtedly a good example. Although the four men had already revealed their killing intent, they were all in a state of ignorance. They were either whispering to each other or busy with their own things. In the blink of an eye, on the faces of the four men, a smile of success appeared. Because in their view, in the face of such a sudden sneak attack, even if the other party's reaction was extraordinary, it would be impossible for them to react. Death was a foregone conclusion. However, just when they were full of confidence and thought that they could succeed in one strike, Qin Feiyang grabbed Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi, used the walk character art, and swooped down, instantly appearing above the city gate. The four men were stunned. What was going on? It was as if they already knew that they would sneak attack. The people below also finally noticed the abnormality in the sky. What's going on? The people glanced at Qin Feiyang and the other two middle-aged men, their eyes full of surprise. Who are you? Why did you sneak attack us? Qin Feiyang stood above the city gate, gloomily staring at the four middle-aged men, and shouted in a stern voice. Sneak attack? What's going on? In an instant, the people on the plain were in an uproar. The four middle-aged men glanced at Qin Feiyang, turned around without hesitation, and flew away. Who gave you the courage to hurt the people of Nine Heavens Palace? Suddenly, a violent shout exploded out of thin air, like thunder, deafening. Following closely, a black-clothed young man appeared in the void and stood in front of the four people. It's senior brother Madman. The disciples of Nine Heavens Palace below recognized the black-robed young man immediately. Their eyes were filled with reverence as though they had just seen their idol. He's that famous lunatic? He's so lawless that he doesn't even put the heads of the Nine Heavens Palace in his eyes? What a powerful aura! He must be a terrifying existence that has already surpassed the level of a perfect divine lord. Everyone discussed animatedly, their faces filled with fear. However, Qin Feiyang and the other two had a hint of doubt in their eyes. Shouldn't Shengwan Fenglan be the one to help them? How did he become a lunatic? At the same time, the four middle-aged men hovered in the air as they looked at the madman before them. Their faces were filled with fear. Obviously, they all knew what Madman was capable of. Madman glanced at the four of them and sneered, "Do you want to die kneeling or lying down?" The corners of Qin Feiyang and the other two's mouths twitched. Was there a difference? Lying down was death. Kneeling was death. Either way, they were going to die. When the four heard this, their pupils shrank. Swoosh! Immediately after, they quickly scattered and used teleportation to escape in four different directions. Mere four great success divine lords also wished to escape from in front of me? Madman's face was filled with disdain. Boom! The peerlessly terrifying pressure was like a torrent, surging towards the four people with an earth-shattering momentum. The four of them were immediately imprisoned in the air as though they were stuck in a quagmire. They couldn't move at all. This aura, his cultivation has indeed surpassed the Divine Lord realm. Someone below exclaimed. Surpassed the Divine Lord realm. Everyone gasped. Just how terrifying was Madman's strength? I'm asking you. How do you want to die? The madman waved his hand and directly grabbed the four of them from afar. It was as if an invisible hand had grabbed tightly onto their necks, causing them to be unable to breathe. The four's eyes were filled with despair. Not going to speak? Then according to my usual methods, I'll grant you death. Madman chuckled and slowly raised his arm. His 5 fingers bent like an eagle's claw as he aimed at one of them. Immediately, his 5 fingers slowly contracted. That person's body immediately began to deform. Streaks of red blood spurted out from the pores all over his body like a fountain. That scene was as if there were several invisible mountains crazily squeezing this person's body. That heart-wrenching pain caused his face to distort. Pain and helplessness. When the other three saw this scene, their faces turned ashen. Even the people below couldn't help but turn pale. He was going to crush that person's divine body. Finally. Accompanied by an ear-piercing scream, that person's body suddenly exploded in the air. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. To be able to crush a great divine lord so casually, this madman is really not ordinary terrifying. Mu Tianyang muttered. Yes. This person is worthy of being the number one on the heaven list. Hua Yi couldn't help but feel his scalp go numb. With such strength, they could only look up to him. Shua. Madman licked his lips as if killing people brought him pleasure. He then swept his gaze over the other three. However, just by looking at Madman's eyes, the three of them felt as if they had fallen into hell. Their bodies turned cold. Madman looked at the three of them and smiled. How about this, let's change the topic. Why did you want to harm Jiang Haotian and the others? Who is the mastermind behind this? Hearing this, the three of them looked even more terrified. Not going to speak? Wait until I bring you back to Nine Heaven Palace. I have 10,000 ways to make you speak. Madman chuckled and opened a teleportation altar. Senior brother Madman, I know them. Suddenly, a flattering voice sounded from the crowd below. Madman and Qin Feiyang were taken aback. They looked down at the same time and saw a young man wearing Nine Heaven Palace's uniform rise up from the crowd. It's you? Qin Feiyang was surprised. This person was actually Ma Guang. Ma Guang smiled flatteringly. I didn't expect senior brother Jiang to still remember me. It's a great honor. We entered Nine Heaven Palace together and lived on the same sword peak. How could I forget you? Qin Feiyang smiled. Ma Guang was the person Chengli had arranged to monitor him. However, Ma Guang was also a smart person and didn't listen to Chengli. Madman asked, You said you know them? Yes. Some time ago, I saw one of them in Nine Heaven Palace. It's him. Ma Guang pointed to the person on the left and said. Don't talk nonsense. That person's face changed as he hurriedly shouted. Shut up for me. Madman's eyes turned cold. He took a step forward and punched that person's mouth. That person suddenly screamed. His teeth were shattered and his mouth was smashed. Blood dripped out. Madman smiled contemptuously and looked down at Ma Guang. Continue. Ma Guang said, He is, However, before he could say anything, Ma Guang suddenly let out a painful scream. Immediately after, Ma Guang fell to the ground and his life force quickly disappeared. Qin Feiyang's face changed as he hurriedly flew towards Ma Guang. Don't go down. There are still Feng Yuan's lackeys hiding in the crowd. Hua Yi hurriedly grabbed Qin Feiyang and glanced at the crowd below as he transmitted his voice. Qin Feiyang's heart sank as he looked at Ma Guang. He was surprised to find that on the back of Ma Guang's head, there was a small bloody hole with blood flowing out. Obviously, someone had plotted against Ma Guang behind his back. But the problem was, with so many people present, why didn't anyone discover the person who plotted against Ma Guang? Even Madman didn't notice. Where was this person hiding? Madman was also a little stunned. He glanced at the crowd and the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. He laughed and said, It's getting more and more interesting. As soon as his voice faded, his divine sense surged out like a tidal wave, covering the entire plain. Everything was clear in his eyes. However, but he didn't find a suspicious person. He also didn't find any spatial divine objects. Wait. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang seemed to have thought of something as he hurriedly glanced at the other three people and shouted, Senior brother Madman, quickly put them into the spatial divine object. However, before his voice faded, another 3 shrill screams rang out. He saw that the 3 people who were imprisoned in the void by Madman also had a bloody hole between their eyebrows, penetrating from the front to the back as blood gushed out. The divine soul in the sea of consciousness had already turned into ashes. It's still too late. Qin Feiyang was extremely angry as he scanned the void. Where was this person hiding? Then he looked at Madman. Looking at the 3 people who had died, his brows were twitching and his veins were popping out. Who was he? He was the famous madman of the 9 Heavens Palace. He had always been the only one who killed in front of others, and no one dared to act rashly in front of him. And this time, Ma Guang and the other 3 were actually killed one after another. To him, this was a humiliation. Very good. Very good. Laozi is completely angry. All of a sudden, Madman laughed sinisterly as his divine power surged out like a waterfall, covering the sky and the sun as it surged out in all directions. In an instant, a giant divine barrier appeared. Not only did it cover the entire plain, it even spread to the entire sky above Sky Dragon City. Rumble. The barrier fell. Sky Dragon City, as well as the thousands of miles around Sky Dragon City, were all covered by the barrier. This place had become a huge cage. From now on, you are only allowed to enter and not allowed to leave. Whoever dares to cause trouble, die. Madman shouted. His voice was like a bell, resounding in all directions and clearly transmitted into everyone's ears. What's going on? Who set up this divine barrier? Not only the plains outside the 4 city gates, even the city itself had fallen into chaos. Qin Feiyang frowned as he flew in front of Madman and whispered, "Senior brother Madman, why don't we forget about it first?" Forget about it? How is that possible? If we don't find this person today, we won't give up. Madman smiled coldly. Hua Yi and Mu Tianyang also flew over. Hua Yi thought, although Ma Guang was killed, from what he said at the beginning, it's not hard to deduce the origin of these 4 people. That's right. Ma Guang said that some time ago, he had seen one of them in the 9 Heavens Palace. That's enough to prove that these 4 people are from our 9 Heavens Palace. After all, outsiders are unable to enter the 9 Heavens Palace. Qin Feiyang nodded. Chapter 2092. So what if we know their background and identity? If we don't know who's behind it, it's useless. Madman snorted. Qin Feiyang sighed, they've already been silenced, how can we investigate? Yeah. There are so many people in Sky Dragon City. Especially today, there's a sea of people inside and outside the city. Even if he shows up now, we won't be able to find him. Rather than wasting time, it's better to give up and find another chance in the future. Moreover, today is an important day for the Treasure Pavilion to auction the 4 symbols Infinite Divine Pill. If we continue like this, we'll be smashing their place. Hua Yi smiled. Madman raised his eyebrows as he looked at the 3 and asked, why did you come to Sky Dragon City? Naturally for the 4 symbols Infinite Divine Pill. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Senior brother, why have you appeared here? We also wanted to see the 4 symbols Infinite Divine Pill. But we didn't expect to encounter such a thing before we even entered the city. It's really annoying. But you're right, we won't be able to find him if we search now. Madman sighed helplessly. With a wave of his hand, the divine power barrier covering Sky Dragon City quickly dissipated. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 looked at each other and said, Senior brother Madman, since we're all going to the Treasure Pavilion, why don't we go together? Together? Madman was slightly taken aback and sneered, you want me to be a free bodyguard, right? The 3 laughed embarrassedly. Madman rolled his eyes and waved his sleeves. Don't waste time, let's go. Okay. The three nodded and quickly followed behind Madman towards the city gate. Right. Madman suddenly turned around and looked at the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace behind him. Take the corpses of Ma Guang and the others to the enforcement hall and let Shengguan Fenglan investigate their identities. Yes. The disciples respectfully replied and took the corpses of Ma Guang and the others, opening an altar and quickly leaving. Qin Feiyang and the other three also entered the city. Everywhere they went, people would make way for them. The guards guarding the city didn't even dare to ask anything and directly let them pass. A moment later, the four of them arrived at the entrance of the treasure pavilion without any hindrance. A staff member stepped forward and asked, "Do the four of you have an appointment?" An appointment? Madman raised his eyebrows and asked, "What's an appointment?" The staff member looked at the four of them and said, "I'm sorry, but you don't have an appointment today, so you can't enter." Ugh! Qin Feiyang and the other two were dumbfounded. This person actually dared to reject a madman? Can't enter? Madman smiled playfully and looked at the staff member. What did you say? Say it again. This, looking at the overbearing lunatic, the staff member was a little flustered. What are you doing? Get out of the way. Suddenly, another staff member quickly ran over and scolded the staff member. She was a young woman in her 20s. The staff felt wronged and said, "They didn't make an appointment." The young woman scolded, "Who are they? Do I even need to make an appointment? Hurry up and get out of the way, otherwise our treasure pavilion won't be able to open for business today." The staff member's expression changed as he looked at Qin Feiyang and the other three in surprise. They actually had such a big background? Then he quickly retreated to the side. The young woman looked at Qin Feiyang and the other three and smiled apologetically. "I'm sorry, the four of you. He's new here and doesn't know your names. Please forgive him for offending you." "It's fine." Qin Feiyang waved his hand. "Young Master Jiang is really reasonable. The steward has already expected young Master Jiang to come, so he has already arranged a VIP room in advance. The four of you, please come in." The young woman smiled flatteringly. Madman glanced at the staff member and swaggered in. Qin Feiyang and the other two followed closely behind. The young woman looked at the backs of Qin Feiyang and the other three and walked to the front of the staff member. She whispered, "The people here today are basically all big shots of the northern region. Even if they don't have an appointment, you have to be polite, understand?" "Okay." The staff member nodded. Auction house. The young woman led Qin Feiyang and the other three into VIP room number 1. Although there was still a long time before the auction began, the outside was already filled with people. There were even quite a few people standing behind. It was very noisy. Every one of them exuded an extraordinary aura. They were either extremely wealthy people or the patriarch of a prestigious family. In short, those who could enter the auction house today were basically rich and respectable existences. Qin Feiyang glanced at the auction house and waved his hand. "You can leave. Don't disturb us if there's nothing important." "Yes." The young woman respectfully replied and turned to walk out of the VIP room and closed the door. Qin Feiyang looked at Madman and smiled. "Senior brother, I'm afraid you didn't come to Sky Dragon City today for the Four Symbols Infinite Divine Pill." Madman sprawled on the chair and said disdainfully, "What Four Symbols Infinite Divine Pill? I'm not interested." "As expected." Qin Feiyang muttered. "Not long ago, I was sleeping soundly in the duty hall, but that woman Shengguan Fenglan suddenly sent me a message, saying that you might be in trouble and asked me to help you. Originally, I wasn't willing, but she said that it was the Great Elder's orders, so I had no choice but to come and take a look. I didn't expect you to really be in trouble." I'm puzzled. Why is it that no matter where you go, there are people who want to plot against you? Madman looked at Qin Feiyang with an extremely strange expression. Qin Feiyang rubbed his nose and said with a smile, maybe it's because I have good relationships with people. Good relationships with people? Madman's eyes were filled with disdain. Qin Feiyang said, did Shengguan Fenglan say anything else to you? Anything else? Madman was stunned and joked, then what do you think she will tell me? This, Qin Feiyang hesitated for a moment and sighed, to tell you the truth, the people who came to assassinate us this time were sent by Feng Yuan. Madman even knew his true identity, so it didn't seem to matter if he told him this. Feng Yuan? Madman was stunned for a moment, then nodded in realization. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two and said, so you already knew. This is all thanks to Mu Tianyang. He is now undercover by Feng Yuan's side. No matter what Feng Yuan does, we will know immediately. Qin Feiyang said. Madman glanced at Mu Tianyang and said, so, this time you wanted to capture those 4 people alive and then overthrow Feng Yuan? That's right. Unfortunately, they were silenced. Qin Feiyang shook his head regretfully. Naive. Madman sneered. Naive? Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other and looked at Madman suspiciously. Even if you capture them alive, they won't pose any threat to Feng Yuan. Because Feng Yuan himself didn't appear from the beginning to the end. He can completely deny it. Unless there is direct evidence. Madman said. When Qin Feiyang and the other two heard this, they lowered their heads and pondered for a moment. It seemed to make sense. Madman's gaze turned and landed on Mu Tianyang, saying, aren't you undercover by Feng Yuan's side? Mu Tianyang nodded. Isn't that easy? Go directly to him and get him to say that these people were sent by him. Take the opportunity to record it. Isn't this video irrefutable evidence? At that time, even if he has 100 mouths, he won't be able to deny it. Madman said lightly. Yes. Mu Tianyang's eyes lit up. Of course. Just this small matter is not enough to bring him down. After all, his status is too high. As long as he takes the initiative to admit his mistake in front of the First Elder, the First Elder will definitely not pursue it. At most, the First Elder will just scold him a little. So, you still need to plan carefully. Madman said. Qin Feiyang and the other two cupped their hands and said, thank you for your advice, senior brother. Did I say anything? I don't think so. Madman frowned. The 3 of them were stunned for a moment, but soon understood. They nodded and smiled, understood, senior brother, you didn't say anything. Madman laughed loudly, and his brows loosened. The sun was high in the sky. A woman in white finally appeared on the auction stage. It was Shengguan Qiu. She wore a long white dress that was spotless. Her black hair was like a waterfall, soft and beautiful. Her whole person was radiant and full of energy. With the arrival of Shengguan Qiu, the originally noisy auction house quieted down. Because they knew that the thing they were looking forward to was about to appear. Thank you for coming to the Treasure Pavilion today, and for trusting us all this time. Here, on behalf of everyone in the Treasure Pavilion, I sincerely thank you. Shengguan Qiu finished her opening speech in a few words, and then bowed deeply to everyone. I won't say any more polite words, because I believe that no one wants to hear it now. Then, I'll go straight to the main topic today. Everyone present already has some understanding of the situation regarding the 4 symbols infinite divine pill. I believe that many of you are now wondering if such a pill really exists in the world. Now, I'll tell you that it does exist. And I guarantee on the reputation of the Treasure Pavilion that if this pill is fake, not only will we return the soul stones, we will also compensate you 10 times the amount. Shengguan Qiu smiled. 10 times the amount? Then it must be real. Miss Shengwan, we still trust the reputation of the treasure pavilion. Let's get started. Someone began to urge them. Thank you again for your trust. Today, the treasure pavilion will auction a total of 10 4 symbols infinite divine pills. And we don't know when the next auction will be held, so please cherish this opportunity. First, the first pill. Shengwan Xiao took out a jade box and gently opened it. An elixir floated out of the jade box. The 9 elixir veins on it were as dazzling as the stars. That's the 4 symbols infinite divine pill? It's actually 9 elixir veins? Which alchemy master made this? At this moment, everyone's eyes were attracted by the 4 symbols infinite divine pill floating in front of Shengwan Xiao. Some were surprised, some were shocked, and some were excited. Chapter 2093. I definitely know which Grandmaster the 4 symbols infinite divine pellet came from. Shengwan Xiao smiled. Then tell us. Let us know who this great man is. The crowd shouted. These 2 masters are really great. Because the 9 Chu Yellow Dragon Pill, the 9 Turn Dragon Blood Pill, and the 4 Symbols Infinite Divine Pill were all made by them. Furthermore, they were the ones who worked tirelessly and spent countless years researching it. Shengwan Xiao said. What? They researched and developed them? The crowd could not believe their ears. They had thought that some alchemy masters were lucky enough to get the prescriptions of these elixirs from some ancient site. They had never expected that they had researched and developed them independently. In other words, they had created 3 new elixir prescriptions. Such a shocking move could be said to be unprecedented in the past and never to be repeated in the future. They were more and more curious about the 2 masters that Shengwan Xiao had mentioned. Who were they? How could they have such terrifying wisdom? Shengwan Xiao scanned the crowd and said with a smile, these 2 masters are, Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang frowned as they looked at Shengwan Xiao, who was beaming with joy. Hua Yi glanced at Qin Feiyang and Madame, then looked up at Shengwan Xiao and frowned as well. Frenzy was curious. The people in the other VIP rooms and the crowd outside also held their breaths as they stared at Shengwan Xiao. After a long while, Shengwan Xiao suddenly smiled and shook his head. I'm sorry, everyone. This is a secret. I can't reveal it. Hearing this, the crowd could not help but curse. If it's a secret, why are you acting like you're going to reveal it? You're obviously making a fool of us. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang secretly heaved a sigh of relief. If Shengwan Xiao really revealed it, there would be more trouble in the future. Actually, I also want to tell you, but the 2 masters kept a low profile. They told us not to reveal their identities. So, everyone, please don't ask around. Now, I announce the start of the auction. The starting price is 1 million soul stones. There's no upper limit. Shengwan Xiao shouted. However, as soon as Shengwan Xiao finished speaking, the whole place fell into a dead silence. The frenzied scramble that Shengwan Xiao had expected did not happen. Everyone was silent. What's the situation? Even Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang were confused, let alone Shengwan Xiao. Was the price too high? The low price was indeed too high. Although the people present were all extremely wealthy and noble, one must know that this was not 1 million divine crystals. Instead, it was 1 million soul stones. Who would be willing to take out 1 million soul stones at once? Furthermore, 1 million soul stones was only the lowest price. It would definitely be better later on. Everyone, what's wrong with you? This 4 symbols everlasting godly pill is enough to allow any divine battle god to break through to the next level, saving a lot of time. Time is precious. I don't need to say it. Everyone knows that no amount of money can buy it. especially the perfect war gods among you. I don't know if you have calculated how many years it will take for a divine battle god to reach the half-step divine emperor realm. Even if you have 100 million soul stones, no matter how fast you refine them, you will still need close to 2,000 years to refine all of them. 2,000 years, how long is that? As long as you have a 4 symbols everlasting godly pill, it will only take a moment. Now, think about it again. Which is more important, the soul stones or the 4 symbols everlasting godly pill? Shengguan Xiu did not panic because of this. Instead, he persuaded them emotionally and logically. After hearing this, everyone present nodded. Indeed. In terms of time, the 4 symbols everlasting godly pill was more important than the soul stones. Mu Tianyang smiled and said, "Let's take the lead." Don't. Hua Yi quickly waved his hand. What's wrong? Mu Tianyang was suspicious. Hua Yi smiled bitterly and said, "Didn't you hear about what happened last time? When Brother Jiang spoke, no one dared to compete." Mu Tianyang was slightly stunned and could not help but smile bitterly. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched fiercely. How long ago was it? How could he still remember? Madman looked at the 3 of them and suddenly said, "I bid 10 million. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 looked at Madman in astonishment. What? You have a problem? Madman glanced at the 3 of them. No. We just want to say that if you speak, no one will dare to raise the price. After all, who would dare to compete with you? Besides, if you raise the price to 10 million, who can bear it? Qin Feiyang said bitterly. Is this wrong? I want to deter them. Lest they bid too high and let the treasure pavilion benefit. Wait. Why do I feel that something is wrong? Looking at you, why do you look like you can't wait to bid a sky-high price? Madman frowned. No. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang quickly waved their hands. Of course, they wanted the price to be as high as possible. Because they could get half of the soul stones. For example, if the price was 100 million, they could get 50 million. However, Madman did not know that the 4 symbols infinite divine pill was refined by them. They did not want Madman to know. Because they could not control Madman. It would not be good if word got out. Then what are you guys talking about? Madman rolled his eyes at Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang and then looked at the auction house. The auction house was still dead silent. Because many people recognized Madman's voice. Especially the disciples of 9 Heavens Palace, their fear of Madman was deeply rooted. Who would dare to make a move? However, the others, such as those who did not belong to 9 Heavens Palace, were somewhat restless. 11 million. Suddenly. Someone in the auction house shouted. 12 million. 13 million. 14 million. It was like poking a hornet's nest. It was out of control. In the face of such temptation, Madman's deterrence seemed to be useless. The voices of bidding were like waves, wave after wave, echoing in the auction house. After a while, the price of the 4 symbols infinite divine pill was raised to a sky-high price of 50 million. It did not stop. The competition was still going on. We've made a fortune. Mu Tianyang sat on the chair, unable to hide the excitement in his heart. Even if it was only 50 million soul stones, he and Qin Feiyang could get 25 million soul stones. If they divided it equally, each of them could get 5 million soul stones. This was even faster than killing people and robbing them. Shengguan Xiu, who was on the high platform, was also full of smiles. This intense scene had far exceeded her expectations. Too slow, 90 million. Suddenly, an impatient voice sounded from VIP room number 6. 90 million. The people outside the auction house could not help but gasp. Who was this? He was so rich, increasing the price by 20 to 30 million. Qin Feiyang, Mu Tianyang, and Hua Yi also looked at VIP room number 6 in surprise. But because of the floor-to-ceiling windows, they could not see the people inside. However, but when they looked at Madman, they found that he was also looking at VIP room number 6, frowning slightly. Qin Feiyang asked, "Senior brother, do you know who he is?" The second on the heaven list, Wuxia. But in addition to the second on the heaven list, he has another title, the recognized number 1 alchemist in the 9 Heavens Palace. Madman said. Wuxia, Qin Feiyang murmured. I've heard of this name. It is said that this person has been talented since he was young, and he seems to be the last disciple of a big shot. Hua Yi said. That's right. His master is the second elder of our 9 Heavens Palace. Madman said. It's actually the second elder. Hua Yi's eyes trembled. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang were also shocked. The second elder was an existence second only to the great elder in the entire 9 Heavens Palace. To be able to be valued by the second elder and accepted as a disciple, how could he be an ordinary character? He is ranked second on the heaven list, so his cultivation must have reached the perfect divine lord realm. This 4 symbols infinite divine pill is useless to him, so why did he come here to join in the fun? Hua Yi raised his eyebrows. Is there even a need to say it? As an alchemist, encountering such a novel pill, he will definitely want to take it back and study it. Qin Feiyang said. If he wants it, he has to get my permission. Madman coldly snorted and said, I bid 100 million soul stones. No more, no less, just enough to raise the price by 1. Madman, what do you mean? Wuxia's voice immediately came out, bringing with it an extremely unhappy tone. If it was an increase of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions, it meant that Madman was determined to win. However, by increasing the price by 1, it was obvious that he was deliberately going against him. Nothing. It's just fun. Madman said indifferently. Wuxia said angrily, I don't think I have offended you before, is there a need for you to do this? Yes. You haven't offended me. But your previous tone made me very unhappy. What's too slow? Are you very arrogant? I really don't know who gave you the courage to be arrogant in front of me. Madman's face was full of contempt. Fine, I won't fight with you, do as you wish. Wuxia was angry, but he didn't have any temper. As a disciple of the heaven list, how could he not know Madman's temper? If he really went all out, there would be no end to it. At least you know your place. Madman smiled proudly. Humph. But another cold snort sounded, followed by a cold voice in the auction house, besides bullying others, what else can you do? 200 million. Feng Zihan. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 looked at each other. They were all too familiar with this voice. It was the number 1 on the heaven list, Feng Zihan. This 4 symbols infinite divine pill actually alarmed 2 disciples of the heaven list. Moreover, listening to Feng Zihan's tone, it seemed that he was prepared to fight Madman to the end. This stinking woman is here too? Madman frowned. Mu Tianyang's eyes flashed, and said, Senior brother Madman, as a man, you can't lose to a woman. At the same time, he poked Qin Feiyang's back from behind. Qin Feiyang understood and nodded, yes, especially with so many people watching, if you admit defeat, how embarrassing would that be? A good man doesn't fight with a woman, is there a need? Madman looked at the 2 of them and said. This, Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other. This guy was actually scared. Madman, aren't you capable? Continue. But at this time, Zijia's laughter rang out, his words full of schadenfreude. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang laughed. This Zijia was really a godly assistant. As expected. Upon hearing Zijia's words, Madman immediately stood up and said angrily, "You want to see what I can do? Fine, I'll fulfill your wish, stinking woman, don't say that I bullied you, get lost as soon as possible." 300 million, 400 million. Feng Zihan said without hesitation, his tone becoming colder and colder. Chapter 2094. Bitch, why are you so stubborn? Frenzy was a little angry. Wasn't this a cheap treasure? 500 million. Frenzy shouted. In front of a woman, a man can't admit defeat. He didn't know if other people thought this way, but Madman thought this way. 600 million. Feng Zihan's cold voice came out. This is crazy. The two of them are using the soul stones like divine crystals. The heavenless disciples of 9 Heaven Palace are really rich. Everyone's heart trembled. 500 to 600 million soul stones, many people can't earn that much in their lifetime. But these two people didn't even blink their eyebrows in anger. To put it nicely, they were rich. To put it bluntly, they were prodigal. Sheng Guanqiu was naturally excited. As a businessman, he liked to see such a scene the most. Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang were also very excited. Because the higher Frenzy in Feng Zihan bid, the more soul stones they would get. But in front of Frenzy, they didn't dare to show it. They could only suppress the excitement in their hearts. "Brother Jiang, Brother Mu, let's talk." Suddenly, Huiyi's voice sounded in the minds of Qin Feiyang and Frenzy. Talk about what? The two were taken aback and looked at him in confusion. Shengguan Fenglan also told me a little about your cooperation with Shengguanqiu. Huiyi laughed secretly. Qin Feiyang had a bad premonition in his heart and said, "If you have something to say, say it." Huiyi secretly said, "What I want to say is that you two can't be the only ones reaping the benefits." You, Qin Feiyang and Mu Tianyang suddenly had a trace of anger in their eyes. This guy was obviously trying to extort them. "I don't want much, each of you give me 50 million soul stones, consider it as hush money." Huiyi laughed. 50 million isn't much? Qin Feiyang and Frenzy were furious. Huiyi's meaning was very obvious. If they didn't agree, he would tell Frenzy about them refining the 4 symbols infinite divine pill. Don't look at me so bitterly. We're friends and brothers. We'll go through thick and thin together, right? You've earned such a large sum of soul stones. You can't leave me with nothing, right? Huiyi secretly chuckled. Qin Feiyang said angrily, "If we were really friends and brothers, you wouldn't have threatened us like this." "How is this a threat?" "It's a discussion." Huiyi said, feeling wronged. Scram. Qin Feiyang glared at him and inwardly said, "Fine, I'll give you 50 million, but you better keep your mouth shut." "Of course." Huiyi repeatedly agreed, his heart blooming with joy. He hadn't done anything, yet he had received 100 million soul stones. This was like a pie falling from the sky. He was dizzy from the smashing. As the three of them conversed, the price had already soared to 900 million. In the entire auction house, only the Madman and Feng Zihan were increasing the price. Everyone else was watching with their mouths agape. 1 billion. Finally, the price broke through the 1 billion mark. And the one who bid 1 billion was Feng Zihan. When she bid, she didn't hesitate at all. It was as if this 1 billion soul stones were nothing in her eyes. The entire audience was dead silent. 1 billion divine crystals was still acceptable, but 1 billion soul stones, even some of the rich people present were unable to compare. The Madman also fell silent. It wasn't that he couldn't afford this price, but he really didn't want to benefit the treasure pavilion. When the sandpiper and the clam fought, the fisherman would benefit. He and Feng Zihan fought desperately, letting the treasure pavilion reap all the benefits. This deal wasn't worth it. But if he backed down now, he would definitely be ridiculed. What should he do? Now, he was riding a tiger and couldn't get off. Qin Feiyang glanced at the madman, his eyes flashing slightly. He swept his gaze across the auction house and sighed, "Senior brother madman, as the saying goes, a good man doesn't fight with a woman. Why are you sulking with a woman? Moreover, even if you win against senior sister Feng Zihan today, I'm afraid you'll become the subject of ridicule. They'll say that you, a grown man, don't even have this bit of magnanimity to bully a woman." Qin Feiyang's voice was very loud, spreading throughout the entire auction house. "What are you doing? So, you're not giving the madman a way out?" Mu Tianyang secretly asked. Qin Feiyang secretly said, "I'm giving him a way out." "Why? Don't want to earn soul stones? Are you crazy?" Mu Tianyang was a little angry. "Who doesn't want to earn soul stones? But you also need to know how to be satisfied. You know the madman's temper. In the future, when he finds out that the 4 symbols infinite divine pill was refined by us, he will definitely not let it go. So, we can't go too far. Know when to stop." Qin Feiyang secretly said. Mu Tianyang frowned. Although he felt a little uncomfortable in his heart, he couldn't deny that Qin Feiyang's consideration wasn't unreasonable. As expected. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, the madman immediately cast a grateful look at Qin Feiyang, then looked at the auction house and said righteously, "That's right, I'm a grown man, how can I bully a woman? I admit defeat." As soon as these words came out, it attracted the praise of many people. "You also need to have the ability to bully me." But suddenly, Feng Zihan's voice suddenly sounded. The madman raised his eyebrows, and anger immediately rose from his heart. Qin Feiyang hurriedly comforted him in a low voice, "Senior brother, bear with it, don't argue with her." The madman took a deep breath and said, "I'm a man, it's only right for me to give in to you women." "I don't need you to give in." Feng Zihan immediately said mercilessly. "This damned woman, why is she so insensible?" The madman couldn't help but be angry. Qin Feiyang laughed, "Senior sister, senior brother has already admitted defeat, why are you still being so aggressive?" Feng Zihan said indifferently, "Do you have the right to speak?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. Was this woman crazy? She would bite whoever she saw. Fine. He was meddling in other people's business, you guys continue. Shengguan Xiu looked meaningfully at the VIP room where Qin Feiyang and the others were and asked loudly, 1 billion spirit stones, is there anyone else who wants to bid? The people present all cast disdainful looks at Shengguan Xiu. With such a high price, who would dare to bid? You should be content. Shengguan Xiu was also quite embarrassed. She coughed dryly and smiled, "Then I will announce the result, the first 4 symbols infinite divine pill is won by Feng Zihan. Next, the second pill will be auctioned, the starting price is still 1 million, and there is no upper limit." A new round of competition had begun. But this time, the madman and Feng Zihan didn't bid again. But Yu Zijie became very active, but in terms of words, he seemed to be extra careful, for fear of making the madman unhappy again. 1 billion spirit stones, with Shengguan Xiu, each of us will get 250 million spirit stones. Minus Huiyi's 50 million spirit stones. Damn, just the first 4 symbols infinite divine pill alone, we will get 200 million spirit stones. Qin Feiyang, I warn you, don't give the pill formula to the first elder. Mu Tianyang silently calculated, and when the final result came out, he was so excited that he was incoherent. Am I the kind of person who will cut off his own path to wealth? Qin Feiyang was speechless. Then who knows? I am not a roundworm in your stomach, how would I know what you are thinking? Mu Tianyang secretly said. Qin Feiyang shook his head helplessly. The madman looked for a while, then stood up and said, Jiang Haotian, accompany me to a place. Qin Feiyang was stunned, he raised his head and looked at the madman suspiciously. Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi were also puzzled. The madman's eyes flashed, and he whispered, actually, Shangguan Fenglan gave me a mission this time. There is another mission? Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other and asked doubtfully, what mission? A secret. The madman smiled mysteriously. Just the two of us? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. The madman nodded. What about them? Qin Feiyang pointed at Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi. The madman said angrily, they are already so old, do they still need you to take care of them? You are not their father. Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched, and he said with a smile, I want to, but they won't admit it. Jiang Haotian, you are too much. Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi immediately glared at Qin Feiyang. Let's not talk about Hua Yi, let's talk about Mu Tianyang. Mu Tianyang and Qin Batian were people of the same generation. Therefore, in terms of seniority, Qin Feiyang was considered a grandchild in front of Mu Tianyang. He actually wanted to be his father? Uncle can tolerate it, but aunt can't. Don't be long-winded, hurry up. The madman said and took out a teleportation altar. Wait. We came to the treasure pavilion under Feng Yuan's orders. Now that I am going out with you, does that count as leaving my post? Qin Feiyang said. The madman said disdainfully, with this old man here, what can he do to you? This, Qin Feiyang was a little hesitant. Now that he was working in the resource hall, he couldn't make any mistakes. Otherwise, he would be caught by Feng Yuan. With Feng Yuan's means, even if it was just a small mistake, he could cause a lot of trouble for you, let alone a big mistake. Why are you so wishy-washy? Although this mission was given to me by Shangguan Fenglan, the person behind it is the Great Elder. What can Feng Yuan do to you? The madman said angrily. So it's the Great Elder, then I am relieved. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at Mu Tianyang and Hua Yi with a smile. The mission given to us by Feng Yuan, you guys do as you see fit. Understood. I also want to experience this Yuzijia's means. Mu Tianyang smiled playfully. Qin Feiyang glanced at the VIP room where Yuzijia was. His eyes flashed and he exhorted, don't go too far. After all, he is the second elder's disciple. Do I need you to remind me? Get lost, get lost. Mu Tianyang waved his hand impatiently. Qin Feiyang turned to look at the madman and said with a smile, let's go. The madman's resurrection altar. The two jumped up one after another and then disappeared from the sight of Hua Yi and Mu Tianyang. Hua Yi asked suspiciously, Brother Mu, this madman is so mysterious. What is his mission? How would I know? Aren't you very familiar with Shangguan Fenglan? Why don't you ask her? Mu Tianyang said. Hua Yi's body stiffened and he smiled, forget it, let's play with Yuzijia. Anyway, the soul stones were given to us by Feng Yuan. It doesn't matter how much we waste. No temper. Mu Tianyang looked at Hua Yi with disdain and then swept his gaze to the auction house. Although it was not as intense as before, the price of the second 4 symbols infinite divine pill had soared to 100 million. There were very few people bidding. Because they did not want to offend Yuzijia. In the end, the price stopped at 150 million. No one competed with Yuzijia. Just when Yuzijia thought that this 4 symbols infinite divine pill was already in the bag, 200 million. But suddenly, Mu Tianyang opened his mouth. As he said before, the soul stones were given to them by Feng Yuan. He did not care about wasting them and increased the price by 50 million. Yu Zijia's face changed on the spot. The atmosphere of the auction house also changed. Everyone's expression was extremely strange. What was going on with the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace? Why did they all like internal strife so much? Chapter 2095. Let's talk about Qin Feiyang and Madman. At this moment, the two of them arrived above a mountain. Qin Feiyang was very unfamiliar with this place and couldn't find the direction at all. There was no one below either. Ancient trees towered into the sky and beasts were everywhere. But the cultivation of these beasts wasn't strong. Most of them were at the initial and perfect war god level. It was very difficult to find a perfect war god level beast. What is this place? Qin Feiyang looked around and looked suspiciously at Madman. We haven't arrived yet. Madman opened another altar. Qin Feiyang jumped up with a stomach full of doubts. The next moment, they appeared in the sky above a vast desert. The wind whistled, yellow sand flew all over the sky, and the temperature was extremely hot. Madman didn't say anything and activated another legendary altar. We haven't arrived yet? Qin Feiyang was stunned. How far was Madman going to go? Next. The bewilderment in Qin Feiyang's heart grew stronger. Madman continued to activate altars and had activated more than a dozen altars. But looking at Madman's expression, it seemed that they hadn't reached their destination yet. Senior brother, where exactly are we going? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. He remembered that he had activated more than a dozen altars from the land of the undead to Sky Dragon City. Could it be that Madman was going to a place even further than the land of the undead? After activating a few more altars, the two of them arrived above a river. The river was more than a dozen meters wide and the rolling water made a deafening sound. And dozens of miles away from the river bank, there were more than a dozen villages of various sizes scattered. Qin Feiyang glanced around and judged the overall strength of those villages. The strongest person was a war saint. The weakest ones were even warriors and martial masters. Compared to Heavenly Dragon City, the spiritual energy of the world was worlds apart. Obviously. This place was located in a remote place in the northern region. Madman didn't activate any more altars here. Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously and said, "Is this the destination?" "No." Madman shook his head. "Not yet." Qin Feiyang was stunned. "But it's not far." Madman said again as he looked to the west, his eyes flickering. Qin Feiyang also looked over. But in the west, other than the rolling, winding mountains and rivers, there was nothing special. The madman suddenly withdrew his gaze and took out two sets of black clothes from his cosmos ring. He threw one of them to Qin Feiyang. "What?" Qin Feiyang grabbed his clothes and asked suspiciously. "Change into it." Madman said as he took off the clothes with the flame pattern engraved on them and put on the black clothes. Qin Feiyang looked at Madman in astonishment. Not only were those clothes made of sackcloth, but they were also very shabby and dirty. They resembled the clothes worn by beggars. He lowered his head and carefully looked at the clothes Lunatic gave him. They were also tattered and dirty. He placed it at the tip of his nose and sniffed it. There was even a faint sour smell. "Hurry up," Madman urged. "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded and quickly took off his coat and changed into his clothes. Madman said, "Put away your cosmos ring too." Qin Feiyang quickly took off his cosmos ring and put it in his arms. Madman also took off his cosmos ring, then held his head with both hands and rubbed it hard. His neat long hair was immediately messed up. "How is it?" Madman looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. Qin Feiyang looked at Madman for a moment and said, "You have the temperament of a beggar." "Heh." Madman grinned and raised his hands again. Without asking for Qin Feiyang's opinion, he directly made Qin Feiyang's long hair look like a chicken's nest. "Senior brother, what do you want to do?" Qin Feiyang was extremely depressed. "Don't talk nonsense, just follow me." After Madman finished speaking, he stepped out and landed on the bank of the river. Then he walked towards the village dozens of miles away. Qin Feiyang followed beside him and scanned the surroundings. There were also many fierce beasts in the surrounding forest, but their cultivation was the same as the people in the village. The strongest was only a battle saint. After a while, a village in front of them entered their sight. There were a total of 500 to 600 families in the village. There was a stream at the entrance of the village, and a dozen children were playing happily by the stream. Their ages ranged from 7 or 8 to 12 or 13, and their faces were filled with innocent smiles. Madman stood on a small hill and looked at the children from afar. He couldn't help but smile. Qin Feiyang on the side also missed this happy and worry-free life. "Senior brother, this isn't your home, right?" Qin Feiyang asked. "My home?" Madman was slightly stunned and speechless. "What are you thinking? This place has nothing to do with me. I just thought of my childhood when I saw those kids." "I see. Then can you tell me what we are doing here?" Qin Feiyang said. "Don't worry." Madman waved his hand and said, "Suppress your cultivation for me. Don't scare those children." Qin Feiyang was helpless. What was this person trying to do? The two suppressed their cultivation to the Battle Emperor level before walking towards the village. Look, there are two beggars." One of the children suddenly noticed Qin Feiyang and Madman and immediately shouted to his companions. The group of children immediately looked at Qin Feiyang and Madman. The oldest of them was about 13 years old. He looked at Qin Feiyang and Madman, and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. He whispered, "Everyone, be careful." "What? What are two beggars afraid of?" The two children around 7 or 8 years old said. "Idiot. There are even battle saint-level beasts in the forest ahead. They can pass through the forest alive and come to our village. How can they be beggars?" The older boy said angrily and gently knocked on the heads of the two children. After all, with their age, they naturally knew more things than other children. It seems to make sense. The other children pondered for a while and nodded. Then they all became vigilant. "Don't be afraid, uncle. We are just passing by." Madman walked over and looked at the children, revealing a smile that he thought was very amiable. "Passing by?" The group of children was stunned. Yes, passing by." Madman nodded. One of the children pinched his nose and asked, "Then where did you come from? Why are you so dirty?" Even the disciples of the Heaven List are afraid of him, but now he is being despised by a few children. Qin Feiyang laughed secretly. Madman stared at Qin Feiyang and looked at the children, saying, "We came from a village hundreds of miles away and have been in the mountains for several months. How can we not be dirty?" "Then what are you doing in the mountains?" The group of children looked at him curiously. Madman smiled, "Of course we are exploring and looking for treasures." "Did you find any treasures?" The group of children asked again. Madman laughed, "There are some, but they are just ordinary herbs and can't be sold for much." "I see. Then it must have been hard on you. Why don't you all wash up here and drink some water before you leave?" Children were all innocent and naive. As long as one was not born with evil, it was easy to gain their trust. "Can I?" Madman glanced at the stream and asked. "Of course." The children nodded. "You little guys are really lovable," Madman said and wanted to reach out and touch the head of a child. But the older boy suddenly raised his arm and slapped Madman's hand away, saying, "Wash up and leave. This little guy is quite vigilant." Qin Feiyang muttered and looked at the boy. The boy was about 1.5 meters tall and handsome. Compared to the other children, he had the maturity of an adult. Wait! Suddenly, his pupils shrank. This boy's cultivation was actually a 3-star combat emperor. This must be a joke. A 12 to 13-year-old boy could actually cultivate to a 3-star combat emperor? How shocking was his talent? Could it be that this boy was Madman's target? He looked at Madman again. He was not angry at the boy's offense. Instead, he laughed and said, "Boy, don't have such a bad temper." The boy glanced at Madman and then said to the other children, "Let's go back to the village first." Okay. Immediately, the group of children followed behind the boy and ran back to the village. Madman did not care and jumped into the stream. Lying in the water, he looked at the boy's back and asked, "Qin Feiyang, how is that boy?" "Very good." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Can you only use 'very good' to describe him?" "Back then, when I was 12 to 13 years old, I was only a combat king. His talent is better than mine. But this is not the main point." Madman said. "Not the main point?" Qin Feiyang was slightly startled and asked suspiciously, "Then what is the main point?" Madman squinted his eyes and said, "The main point is that he has opened the door of potential." "What?" Qin Feiyang's pupils shrank and hurriedly asked, "Which level did he open?" "The 4th level." Madman said. "What?" Qin Feiyang was in disbelief. "Opening the 4th level of potential. Doesn't that mean that this boy has broken through the warrior realm, martial master realm, martial ancestor realm, and combat king realm?" Madman said again. Moreover, he did not rely on the potential pill. He relied on his own ability. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's mind rumbled. Relying on his own ability to break through the extreme realm? This was too shocking. Wait! Qin Feiyang suddenly realized an important point and looked at Madman in surprise. Madman raised the corner of his mouth and said, "Are you wondering why I know about the potential pill and the potential pill?" Qin Feiyang did not answer or deny it. "You will know in the future." Madman smiled mysteriously. Qin Feiyang looked at Madman deeply and asked, "So we came here this time for that child?" "Yes." "That's not right either." Madman said. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Why did it sound so contradictory? According to Shengwan Fenglan, this child's talent was not very good when he was young. It can even be described as mediocre. But then one day, he mysteriously disappeared. The villagers searched thousands of miles in order to find him. In the end, after about half a month, they finally found him at the edge of the land of extreme west. It was from then on that the child's talent changed. In terms of talent alone, this child can definitely be ranked in the top 10 in the entire northern region. Madman said. Chapter 2096. The Far West Land? Qin Feiyang frowned. Madman said, "The Far West Land is not far from here. It is one of the forbidden areas of the North region." "I understand. The reason Shengwan Fenglan asked you to come this time is to investigate the reason for this child's talent transformation." Qin Feiyang said. "That's right." Madman nodded. Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously, "Then how does Shengwan Fenglan know about this child's situation?" One had to know. This place was close to 20 teleportation altars away from 9 Heaven Palace. And the North region was so big and there were so many people. That child was obviously a low-key person, but how did Shengwan Fenglan know so clearly? "You don't know." My nine-heaven palace has always been secretly looking for talents, especially those with especially good talent. And just half a year ago, someone from our nine-heaven palace happened to come here and heard about this child's situation. When Shengwan Fenglan received the message, she sent someone to investigate this child. But, Madman couldn't help but frown when he said this. But what? Qin Feiyang asked. In the past half a year, Shengwan Fenglan sent a total of 12 law enforcers, but these people all disappeared after entering the far west land. Madman said. All disappeared? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Madman nodded and said, yes, none of them came back. They probably died in the far west land. Qin Feiyang asked, what are their cultivations? About the same as me. Madman said. I'll go. Qin Feiyang was secretly speechless and said angrily, then why did you ask me to do such a dangerous mission? Madman raised his eyebrows and said angrily, I'm taking care of you, understand? Taking care of me? I really can't tell. Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. Think about it, this child entered the far west land and his talent seemed to have changed. There must be some treasure hidden in the far west land. If you're lucky and we find it, then wouldn't it be yours? Madman said. I don't need it. Goodbye. Qin Feiyang shook his head and took out an altar without hesitation. Lunatic was an existence that surpassed a divine lord. As for the enforcers, their strength was similar to lunatics, which meant that they had surpassed a divine lord. Even experts surpassing the divine lord realm couldn't come back alive, let alone a mere perfect realm war god like him. Why don't you try? The madman stared at him with an unfriendly expression. Let's go then. Qin Feiyang said. Sure. However, the moment you leave, I will expose your identity. Madman smiled mockingly. Qin Feiyang's body stiffened. He looked at the madman helplessly. Can you just let me go? I just want to cultivate peacefully and then find my ancestor. I have nothing to do with the ancient world or your nine-heaven palace. No. The madman shook his head. There was no room for negotiation. Qin Feiyang glared at him. The madman ignored him. Qin Feiyang sighed helplessly. He put away the teleportation altar and sat beside the madman. He pondered for a while and said, since that young man went to the far west land, why don't we let him lead the way? According to Shengwan Fenglan, we don't know what happened to that young man. It is said that he was in a coma when he disappeared. The madman said. Then how do we find him? Qin Feiyang frowned. That's why I brought you here. Aren't you very good at dealing with Feng Yuan? Help me think of a way. The madman said. What can we do? Qin Feiyang was speechless. Wait. Suddenly. Qin Feiyang seemed to have thought of something. He frowned and said in surprise, is there such a possibility? The treasure we guessed might be in that young man's body? No. Shengwan Fenglan had already sent people to secretly observe the young man, but they didn't find anything. The madman shook his head. Then it seems that we can only start from this young man. Qin Feiyang pondered. Since he couldn't run away, he could only try his best. After a long time, Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of light. He asked, have you ever suspected that the young man might not have been in a coma when he disappeared? Not in a coma? The madman was slightly stunned and frowned. You mean, that young man is lying? Qin Feiyang said, we can't rule out this possibility. There is indeed such a possibility. But he's just a child. Why would he lie? The madman was suspicious. Maybe it's because he knows that this is very important, or maybe someone is teaching him behind his back. In short, the most important thing is to find out whether he lied or not. Qin Feiyang said. How? The madman asked. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, I have a way, but I want to ask, what benefits can I get? Benefits? I helped you and Sheng Guanqiu earn 1 billion soul stones this time. Is it not enough? The madman said angrily. Qin Feiyang was shocked. How did the madman know about this? The 4 symbols infinite divine pill. Only those idiots would believe that it was developed by some bullshit master. The madman sneered. What else do you know? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Not much. But these pills, I know basically all of them. The madman said. Qin Feiyang was shocked. You also have the pill formulas for these pills? I'm not an alchemist. What do I need these pill formulas for? The madman pursed his lips. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead and said weakly, if I had the ability, I would definitely kill you. The madman said disdainfully, unfortunately, you don't have the ability. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. He had never been so powerless before. Qin Feiyang said, since you want to follow my method, then there's no need to pretend anymore. Just enter the village. Enter the village directly? Won't this seem like we're bullying the weak? The madman said. Big brother, how many times have you bullied the weak in 9 Heaven Palace? Now you're pretending to be a good person? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him, then jumped up and landed at the entrance of the village. I am a good person. Otherwise, who knows how many times you would have died? The madman muttered. He got up and rushed to Qin Feiyang's side, sending a sound transmission. No matter what you do, I won't say a word. Just don't expose our identity as a disciple of 9 Heaven Palace. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. With that, the two stepped into the village. The group of children from before didn't run far. They were playing not far from the entrance of the village. And there were many women and old people in the village. Before, Qin Feiyang and the madman didn't enter the village. They had a very calm attitude and didn't even pay special attention to them. But now, when the two entered the village, the villagers immediately stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman with hostility. The older boy frowned. Didn't I tell you to wash up and leave? Leave? The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth lifted as he stepped in front of the boy. The boy immediately retreated in panic. What do you want to do? The adults in the village all had a change of expression as they quickly flew over. Boom! Qin Feiyang didn't want to waste his breath. His divine aura rolled out like a huge wave and instantly enveloped the entire village. This is divine aura. You're a war god. The villagers panicked as they looked at Qin Feiyang with fear in their eyes. Don't worry, I won't hurt you. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Then, he stretched out his hand and the boy uncontrollably flew in front of Qin Feiyang. Let me go, the boy roared, his eyes filled with unyielding. I admire your gaze. However, the current you is still too weak. Qin Feiyang used grievance to imprison the boy. His hands formed a seal and a puppet seal quickly appeared. Immediately after, as Qin Feiyang waved his hand, the puppet seal entered the boy's head like lightning. A heart-wrenching pain suddenly spread out from the boy's sea of consciousness and engulfed his whole body. The boy howled in pain as his slightly immature face was directly distorted. After controlling the boy, Qin Feiyang didn't delay and immediately began to read the boy's memory. The boy's name was Long Tianyu, 13 years old. His parents died and he was raised by his grandfather. But 2 years ago, the boy's grandfather unfortunately lost his life under the claws of a fierce beast, so the boy was now an orphan. But the villagers were very good to him and took care of him like their own son. So in these 2 years, the boy had lived a very happy life. And a 13-year-old boy didn't have many memories. After about 100 breaths, Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly burst out a ray of light. In the boy's memory, he saw a gray castle. The castle was located on a glacier and exuded an extremely terrifying aura. And the time when the boy went missing was in that gray castle. What? All of a sudden, Qin Feiyang's body trembled as a deep disbelief climbed up his face. What's wrong? Madman stepped forward and asked. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and removed the puppet seal. He took a deep look at the boy and turned to look at Madman, saying, I know where it is, let's go. Madman was stunned for a moment before revealing an excited expression and quickly followed. As for the boy, looking at Qin Feiyang's back, his little face was pale. Although he didn't know what Qin Feiyang did to him, the pain from before made him feel as if his soul was being torn apart. It would be unforgettable for the rest of his life. Tianyu, are you okay? How do you feel? When Qin Feiyang and Madman left the village, the villagers immediately rushed to Long Tianyu with a face full of concern. Thank you uncles, aunts, grandpa, grandma for your concern. I'm fine. Long Tianyu shook his head and looked at the back of Qin Feiyang and Madman. His hands slowly clenched together as he muttered, one day, I will definitely become an expert like them, outside the village, in the forest. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and didn't say a word along the way. The disbelief on his face also didn't dissipate for a long time. What exactly do you know? Madman frowned. Qin Feiyang stopped and pondered for a moment before raising his head to look at Madman, saying, that child didn't rely on his own ability to open the door of potential. What? Madman was extremely shocked. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, it's the potential pill and the potential pill. Impossible. Madman shook his head. I also think it's impossible, but this is what I saw from his memory. It can't be wrong. Qin Feiyang said. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.